And coming to you live from Deck Island, the largest island located in Lake Tana, the largest lake in Ethiopia, and as well as a source of the Blue Nile, located in the Amhara region in the northwestern Ethiopian highlands. The lake is approximately 84 kilometers long and 66 kilometers wide, with a maximum depth of 15 meters and an elevation of 1,788 meters. We're here today with the PondCast number 30 30 30.
I've been there
Just
before.
usually a number afterwards. It's like, oh, it's just 30 this time. I'm, of course, your host, Yaku of the Zaku, knowing how to count. I'm, of course, joined, as usual, by El del Teléfono, que estuvo en la zona fantasma, light underscore VIP. And as always, we are produced by 16 Squad Sanseki Chikajish Majinka Doshkijinia Kitora Pujilva Zapomocha Plitiv Kuro. 16 Squad Sanseki. How we all doing?
What's up, Yaku? It's Razy back here, as you said, with another podcast. And yes, I've been there before, where you start saying one thing, then you realize you don't need to keep saying anything, and you already began. You already started.
Yeah.
What do you do? Where do you go?
What do you do? You can't stop now. You already spun them up. You already got the inertia.
Exactly.
Or not the inertia, the momentum. It's two opposite things. Two opposite forces.
It's gonna be fine. It's gonna be fine. But yes, we are back on 2 weeks in a row. 2 weeks in a row.
Yeah.
We've been on a bit of a hiatus at the start of the year, but now we are regular once again with your weekly dose of StarCraft news.
Yeah, catching up on all the events that happened last week, and also catching up on all of the content that we didn't get to talk about last week that came out like 2 weeks ago.
Yeah, exactly. Again, last week we had a lot of catching up to do, so we didn't have as much time to delve into all of these, all the documentaries, all the interviews that have been taking place during our off time, during our off season. But now we're here to catch up with at least most of that, and we'll most likely be catching up with that next time as well.
Yeah, I was gonna say, fun fact, and we're still not gonna be done this week.
No, not
We
at all.
still have like 3, 4 more. We still have like 3 or 4 that we aren't quite able to cover this week, and yeah, by the time next week comes around, I'm sure we'll have another to add to that pile. So
yeah. We'll get there. We'll get there. Also, just for some greater context for those that are tuning in, we do have a hard cutoff point here for this week's podcast, just because Masters Coliseum is in 2.5 hours. But we should be fine. Like, despite us catching up and having despite us having a lot of topics to go through last week, this week there is significantly less to go through. So it looks like a bit of a lighter episode.
We might even have time for a special treat at the end. If we make it that time, it needs to be shown. I feel like it needs to be shown to the world.
Oh no!
I can't keep it within me anymore. It's eating away at me. But regardless, that we'll see if we are able to get to that at the end of the show. Before that, we actually have a show to do. So
we do.
Let's dive into it.
As we dive into the topics, and before we do dive headfirst in, I do want to try to catch up a little bit here, because we had a very momentous occasion that did occur. Yaku, something very special happened. You know, how long has it been? How long has it been that we've had a member of the community, lying to us, saying that they would play the campaign of Brood War for years at this point, and I'll be honest, I didn't think it would happen. I did not believe. I thought that it would just be something that'd be, it'd be like Divinity,
That's it too, yeah.
Exactly.
It's on our backlog. We'll get to it.
We'll get to it. We will get to it.
All right, go on. I'm not sure what you're referring to, but
a couple of days ago, we did have Yaku of the Zaku have a Brood War campaign stream, and he played through the Terran campaign for the first time.
Yes, all of it. Well, kind of for the first time. I finished it for the first time. I was gonna finish it for the first time 7 years ago. I
Uh-huh.
got to like the third or fourth mission, and then Milk and Cookies showed up on my stream. I was like, Yaku, we're doing an arcade night.
Mm.
Jump into Big Game Hunters. Jump into. I need you to experience actual StarCraft One and Brood War,
Mm.
not this campaign bullshit. You actually bought remastered. Nobody plays the campaign. Join me in Big Game Hunters, and so I was rudely interrupted, but it was a fun night.
Mhm.
Kind of a fun in-clan thingy.
Yeah, yeah, Milk, he tempted you by the big game hunters, but now you finally got to experience the campaign. And Yako, I was curious to hear your thoughts on what you thought on the experience, on the story, on the campaign itself. Yeah, especially experiencing for the first time in completion.
Well, if you like my full thoughts,
Mhm.
twitch.tv/Yakuzaku1. The full VOD is highlighted over there. You can go
Beautiful.
check it out. Right? No, but yeah, I mean, that's a 6-hour VOD, so
Uh-huh.
that's got a lot to go through. And I did talk a little bit, yeah, quite a bit about what I thought as I was playing through it. But
Mhm.
yeah, definitely a huge different experience from StarCraft 2, both mechanically and narratively as
Mhm.
well. Something that I mentioned once or twice, but something that I noticed myself continuously doing is that fun fact about StarCraft 1 and Brood War, you can only have one building per control group, right?
Mhm.
And I knew this going in because I knew this going in, and I heard from some. I'm not sure where I heard it from before. It might have been from a Day9 video or something, but I've heard that what the pros essentially do is they only bind their bases, so their CCs, their hatcheries, etc. And what they do is that they'll double click, or I think
Mhm.
some of them use camera hotkeys, but some of the others they double click and then they'll manually click on their production buildings and then just build from there. I
Mhm.
knew that going in, but I still found myself like subconsciously pressing 6, right, which is
Mhm.
where I usually have my factory hotkey. And I was like, okay, let me press 6 so I can build tanks, and I'll just rally them over here. And I was like, oh wait, that's one of my CCs, and it's like,
Mhm.
right, I have to do this all manually. I have to click so much. This is like Terraria. My mouse, my mouse is getting a workout. So
Mhm.
yeah, that's. I think Kuro was in my chat, and she was saying like, yeah, I'm sure you're missing all of those quality of life improvements in StarCraft 2 now, and I'm like, I missed them from the start. Yeah. This is quite a bit more. This is quite a bit more difficult mechanically speaking.
Yeah, 100%. Especially even if you play like another older game like Warcraft 3, for example. Like even in
Hmm.
that, you can key multiple buildings into one
Yeah.
control group. Like even there, like you have that available, so you can actually that still just does transfer over from SC2. But you're right. Like in Brood War, it's even one step further back from that, and yeah, it is a little bit more intense. So you have to kind of fight the game a little bit to actually play the
Yeah.
game, if you will.
Hmm.
But yeah, that's definitely something to overcome and something that's you're not necessarily used to
Yeah.
coming into it.
Yeah. I will say though that on the campaign itself, I still think that the StarCraft 2 campaign, all three of them, in terms of level design, it is phenomenal. It's
Yeah.
extremely creative, especially when you get to Legacy of the Void. They do some very crazy stuff. So far, playing the Terran campaign, it's not quite on that same level, but at the same time, there's also a lot of flexibility and freedom that they've given you. Like, from what I
Mm.
remember in not so much in Legacy of the Void, but I feel like in Wings of Liberty and in Heart of Swarm, usually it was you're going into this level, you get this new unit for the first time, and that's the key to beating this level.
Mm.
Just build this unit, and then you're good. Not so much here in the StarCraft 1 campaign. I mean, it did say like there are tips at the start, which is like, hey, you should build detection this mission, and this is also the first mission that we're giving you science vessels, or the first one that we're giving you wraiths, because you have to actually do some anti-air, but for the most part, you can just do whatever you want. I was so happy that that was one level in particular. I was so proud of myself. It was
Mm.
the only TVP level in the Terran campaign of StarCraft 1, which blows my mind. It's like 9 missions, and it's 5 TVT, 3 TVZ, and only 1 TVP. But it was a
Mm.
TVP mission, and one thing I noticed something that just punched me in the face very early on is how tanky these StarCraft 1 Protoss units are. So it'd be
Uh-huh.
like I build 12 units. I think typically I ran 10 Marines, 2 tanks, so that's 12 units in control group. I would build them, I would rally them across the map, and they would die by the time I have a new control group rallied because zealots are just that so tanky. And then after a
Yeah.
while, I thought, wait a minute, okay, so my marines are dying, which leaves my tanks exposed. What if I just bunker rushed? What if I just leave a trail of bunkers in my wake? And it worked so well. I was so happy. I was like, yes! I came up with this. I stole the idea from Boxer, but I came up with this for the campaign. I was like, ah. Like, yeah. It allows you to think outside the box a little bit. I like that.
Beautiful, beautiful. Yeah, yeah, exactly. Yeah, 100% right. That's I think that's something that everyone always praised the SE2 campaign for is the level design and like how creative they got with it and how they tried to innovate on it as well, with introducing like different research paths and yeah, just like unique missions in general. For Brood War, it's a lot more simple in that respect, which isn't necessarily a bad thing, but it is a
Yeah.
lot more simple, for sure, for sure. But more importantly, something that has been praised when it comes to Brood War, especially compared to SC2, is the story. I know that you're only like,
Yep.
I guess a third or even a sixth of the way through because you just have Brood
Yeah.
War above that as well. So sure, you're still kind of getting introduced to everything. You mentioned before, but like Protoss doesn't really get fully introduced until later, right? Because like a
Yep.
lot of it is very Terran centric amongst other Terran and Zerg as well in the infestation. But do you have any strong thoughts so far?
Yeah, well, I mentioned this in my stream as well when it happened, but I
Mhm.
really liked how your how should I put this? You're kind of in the game, but not really. It's like
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
you're kind of
Yeah.
in the game, but you're not in the map. Like the characters will actually refer to you. Raynor
Yeah.
actually speaks to you directly as like, "Hey, man, we gotta go do this thing." So
Mhm.
whatever since you're the commander, I trust you to figure out how to do it. And then you have the adjuncted be like, "Magistrate, come down," and so and so. Right? It was. I said this on my stream. I'll say it again here. It's not like in StarCraft 2 where you are Raynor, you are Kerrigan, you are Artanis. It's you're the commander who's
Uh-huh.
telling these characters what to do.
You are Artaris. It's true, true.
I keep mixing them up.
I did see the clip. I did see the clip. Yeah, yeah, yeah. I think I remember you referring it to kind of making it similar a little bit to like XCOM, for example, where like you're
Yeah.
the commander, right? So you're
Hmm.
you're kind of the leader of the forces and you're controlling everything. And yeah,
But
yeah,
you're
that's
not
that's the
doing the fighting.
case.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, that's the case for all the campaigns, right? You're a Cerebrate when you're playing for the Zerg, and you're an Executor when you're playing for the Protoss. So yeah, I agree. I think that's like in-game lore-wise, like it makes sense, right? It makes sense. Like you're
Hmm.
you're your own kind of like being. You're not, Raynor and stuff like that. Which also makes
Yeah.
sense when there are missions that don't involve those characters, right? Where they're
Yeah.
not around. It's like, yeah.
Yeah. I also think there's, I mean, not to go too deep into the whole like medium kind of and how that kind of affects the storytelling as well. But there are some points where it's like, uh, for instance, there's this one infamous mission, Heart of Swarm, where the easiest way to beat it and the way that I think everybody beats it is just max out on roaches immediately and just rush to the other side of the map. When the cutscene beforehand and the cutscene afterwards is talking a lot about like I had vision and I diversified my army and I did this and I did that and that's how I was able to win this, and it's like, but that's not what I did. So
Mhm.
yeah, there's a little bit of dissonance that can happen in the narrative of StarCraft 2 there between what the player does and what the story says that the player did.
Mhm. For sure, for sure. I think quickly touching on like the fact that you're not tied to a certain character, going back to that, I think that also gives you a lot more narrative freedom as well, right?
Yeah.
Like as we just mentioned, you don't have to have every mission with Raynor. You don't have to follow his story because like he's
Mhm.
just a character in the story. He's not the pivotal focal point of the story. So you can head off with other characters instead and progress in a different way. And yeah, I think that's just better.
Yeah.
I'll be honest. Than what
Yeah,
they
I
did
agree. I like.
following Raynor and Kerrigan's love story in SE2. Um, for sure, for sure. Mhm. But yeah,
I
so the
will.
real question becomes, go on.
Yes. No, I will say that coming into it as somebody who has played through the StarCraft 2 campaigns, there are some moments where like, oh, I know this because I remember that they played this monologue in the Wings of Liberty campaign or in the Heart of Storm campaign or whatever. But yeah, it became very clear to me that I'm like, oh, I did not get the full story at all. Like I knew the background of what
Mhm.
happened in StarCraft 2. I kind of knew I knew the synopsis of the StarCraft 1 and Brute War stories, but
Mhm.
oh yeah, I did not get the full picture at all.
Mhm. Fair enough. Fair enough. It's cool to hear that you're experiencing it. The question becomes, Yaku, when is the Zerg and the Protoss campaign? When's that happening? When's the next Brood Wars?
Well, I'll get to it. It's in the backlog.
Uh-huh.
It'll
You're
happen.
like, look, it
It'll
took like
it'll
7 years to do
happen
this, so I'll clock me in for maybe in another
eventually.
7 years.
Yeah,
I'll get to the rest.
yeah.
Ah,
By the way,
It'll happen.
a small fun fact for those who have not played the remastered version of the campaign, they have changed one thing, like one very noticeable thing. Between some missions, you would just have like a summary, like what happened somewhere else, essentially, or like an intro to a mission. And originally, it would be literally just a wall of text on your screen that you just had to read.
Mhm.
And in the remaster version, they actually made like illustrations for it. They're like
Yep.
not fully animated, but they're like slightly moving, like illustrations with like context about what is happening, which I think is really cool.
Yeah. You can see
That's nice.
what's it called? The carriers like shooting down lasers. You can see like some lings that are chasing down humans.
Okay.
Oh,
Something that I did notice. Oh, go on.
but speaking about those, here's a massive criticism that I have.
Mm.
Why in the hell are there no volume controls for the cutscenes?
Oh.
They were just way louder than everything else in the game, and I could not find a way to control them specifically. I ended up
Mhm.
controlling on OBS, turning it down, and just holding my headphones out like this while the cutscenes were playing.
Oh, okay. That's unfortunate for sure. Like either doing that or just like lowering it like in system sounds or something. But yeah, that's yeah, unfortunate to hear for sure. Especially because some of them can get quite loud. I would imagine.
Yeah.
Uh, I was gonna say that something I did notice, which was jarring to me. I don't know if you noticed, Curry, is they changed the character models a little bit. I guess maybe to fit with the SE2 counterparts of what some of the characters look like.
Rain is still balling
Uh,
though.
he is. Specifically for me, it was Mengsk. Like Mengsk looks different than what he used to in the original game. Um, they did like change some of his features just to make it look more like SE2. I don't know if how applicable that is to all the other characters, but I did notice that they didn't just like update the graphics like when it comes to their resolution or anything, but they actively like change some of the models a little bit, um,
I
which
had to
was
go
interesting.
quickly. I had to go quickly look up what Manx originally looked like, but yeah, you're right.
Yeah,
It
yeah.
He looks like not Medivh, but like one of the other mages from Warcraft in the original. What's it called? Portrait.
Mhm. Yeah. It is because they've cleaned him up in remaster. They yeah, he looks
Yeah,
different. Different is the best way to put it. Very different. Very different.
he looks less scruffy. I mean, cleaned up is probably the best
Yes, that's what. Yeah,
thing
for
there, right?
sure.
It's
He
like
looks a lot more cleaned up, a lot more proper, like a lot more. Yeah. I,
he actually combed his hair
yeah.
and trimmed the beard a bit. Yeah,
I think he gives a very different vibe now. Like in the previous sprite, he looked a little bit more, maybe a little bit more sinister, like a little bit less formal. But now he looks a lot more like an
like a
officer or
dad.
like a yeah. It's very different. Just interesting. Um, for sure. But yeah, with that, I hope you
Yeah.
wish you the best whenever you do decide to play again. Wish you the best.
Yeah, it's not gonna be until whenever I do it. It's not gonna be until at least Friday next week because I gotta have a sleep schedule for next
Mhm.
week.
Yep, for sure. Makes sense. And that leads us into the PondCast itself. The PondCast itself. We'll be getting into some Brood War later. Maybe it would have been fitting
Yeah,
to have spoken about this
potentially. Yeah.
when getting into some Brood War action. But first things first, we have something that even some people are unaware of nowadays, which should occur a couple of days ago, I think a week ago at this point, is the retirement of Oliveira.
Yes, Oliveira did announce his retirement. Well, he announced his retirement in to the Chinese scene about a month ago, but that only really got out to the rest of the world and the rest of the scenes a couple weeks ago. And yeah, he confirmed that he was going to be retiring. And we talked about this last week. And I remember myself, I was quite worried that I was hoping that it wasn't like a case of. I was hoping it wasn't something negative, right? That was impacting this. But recently, we did get a little bit more details on it because Oliveira did an interview with SC Boy, specifically with F91 recently, specifically speaking about his retirement. And yeah, it does seem like that's not really the case. It's not that it was anything negative. It was more of just, I mean, as he puts it, he's getting older and he does want to explore different things, like explore other things to do with his life. So yeah, it's nice to hear that he isn't leaving due to any like negative disappointments or negative terms or anything like that. He's just wants to do something different now.
Yeah, so basically, we were a little bit concerned that it was going to be due to maybe pressure from the scene or pressure from the community, just because we have heard that in the past, where he's gotten a lot of negative comments from the Chinese community, in regards to his performance and in regards to how he's playing, and that has negatively impacted him in the past. And I do think that the interview is really well done. It's very illuminating when it comes to his reasoning here, and it does make sense. A lot of it comes down to just the uncertainty of StarCraft's future. He was talking about how like he doesn't like being in limbo, basically, right, where his future is uncertain and they don't know what's happening with StarCraft in 2025, and it's stressing him out, like that is like negatively impacting him, like not knowing what's coming in the future and not knowing what's going to happen.
What's interesting about this though is that from the way he phrases it, it seems like the uncertainty with EWC and ESL isn't necessarily the reason why he's retiring, but rather acted as a bit more of a catalyst as to which kind of prompted him to. I mean, like you said, he was feeling very uncertain. He was in a little bit of limbo, but that also like kind of made him think a little bit and made him think, well, I am already a champion. I've already reached like pretty great heights here, and there's a lot of other things that the world has to offer. Maybe it is time to kind of start a new chapter, so to speak.
Yeah, for sure. And he goes into it, of course, a little more in depth. So we do recommend checking out the interview itself. He speaks on, some of his accomplishments, on some of his regrets as well. He would have liked to have maybe gotten another championship win under his belt, or beaten Serral for the first time offline.
And he said that's his biggest regret, never being able to take a series off of Serral in an offline tournament.
And he's gotten close. That's the thing. Like, he's gotten close, and he's had an amazing, career and amazing performances as well. This is a bit of a shame. Some might be thinking, especially because again, like a big reason for his decision to retire here and now, as you're kind of alluding to, like he was thinking of retiring previously. He just needed more of a reason to retire, and the ambiguity around StarCraft 2 is a reason enough. Some people might be thinking like, oh, like that, does that mean like if EWC gets announced for next year, does he come back? He already said that even if it gets announced, like he already made his decision, and it feels weird to like kind of go back on that decision. So even if there is SC2 at EWC and at IEM Katowice, and even if we have another circuit and another like even a couple of years confirmed, like he's already made his decision.
Yeah, I'll say this as well. It's very interesting. I'll say this as well. It was kind of funny when I was reading through it, and he spoke a little bit about his future plans, and he said, "Yeah, I might stick around in esports for a little bit longer. I've been talking to some guy. I've been talking to some of the like managers who have been saying that there are some opportunities for me, but really, I would like to ideally go into an industry where I can have a bit of a lower profile where nobody really knows who I am, where I can be a normal man. And I'm like, God damn it, Oliveira. God damn it. You got me. You got
The
us.
memes. Beautiful,
God
beautiful.
damn it, Paynon. You got us again.
Let's be a normal man. True, true. But yeah, like he alluded to, like, that he didn't go into specifics as to what was being offered to him, but we don't know if it's maybe coaching in front of the esports, or maybe hosting or commentating, or something else, some other kind of role in esports. I think you mentioned it, right, or uh like before the show, how like, oh, maybe he might go to Australia, might go to Sydney or
Yeah.
something, like travel a little bit and just like enjoy himself. I think one of the lines that he had in the interview was like, I think he went to Shanghai for the first time, where he didn't take his keyboard and mouse, like he just
Yeah.
traveled, he
He
just
goes like, I'm not playing
experienced.
anything. I'm just gonna,
Yeah.
experience what this place has to offer me.
For sure,
So
for sure.
freeing.
Yeah. It's definitely that vibe with
Unshackled.
the interview. Yeah, where he feels like definitely a lot like less pressure on his shoulders now. Like he feels more free, and he can just like, live his life now, and not necessarily have anything weighing him down. Because he did put a lot of pressure on himself. Did put a lot of pressure on
Mhm.
himself. Like, I mean, infamously, right, when it comes to his performances and his play and all that stuff. So yeah, to feel happy for him. Feel happy for him.
Yeah, as am I. We wish him the best of luck. I mean, we'll always remember him. We're definitely big Paynon stands over here on the channel, and
Mhm.
yeah, we definitely wish him the best of luck in whatever it is he chooses to go into next.
For sure, for sure.
We,
I share some of his. Oh, go on.
I was just gonna say, we know for a fact because F91 promised us this, that he will be appearing in a couple of SC Boy streams in the future. We don't know when,
Yep.
but he'll find a way to drag him back.
You know what he's gonna do? It's
Is
gonna be like the next like in between like segments where he just has like Pen on like eating like hot wings or something like with everyone else. Like, yes, this is what we wanted.
Eat the sour pickle balls.
Exactly. Oh,
Savor them.
Not again. Not again. So I look forward to it, definitely.
Like,
I do share some of his like some of those thoughts where it's like like we were speaking about it last time, right, Yaku? Where it's like he's peaking right now, like he's very much so informed, sort of thing. But I also understand that like that's not what it's all about. When it comes to making the decision to retire, right? Isn't just about like
Yeah.
the current form you're in and how you're looking, but like the environment you're in and everything else. Like there's definitely other factors that impact him.
For sure. Yeah. He goes into it a little bit and he's like, well, I thought to myself, I'm turning 25 this year, so and there's still a lot of other stuff. And I'm like, God damn it, Paynon, don't do this to me. Don't do this to me. We're the same age, god damn it.
No, she's like, yo, I'm 25, I'm getting old, it's time to think about like settling down and retirement plans. No. Feels bad, man. Feels bad. So definitely a player that's going to be missed, and as you said, like a player near and dear to all of our hearts, right? Like there's definitely a very, very wholesome and very inspiring story with Oliveira, with his performance throughout, with his career, with his performances throughout the years as well. Definitely a player worth cheering for, and yeah, wish him the best. Wish him the best.
Yeah.
And
with that,
John,
yeah, speaking of retired players,
mm-hmm.
we have something else that we would have liked to have gone into last week, but unfortunately didn't quite have enough time. Didn't have enough time to really fully watch through a documentary, I should say. We recently had another documentary come out about another retired player who, funnily enough, is teammates with Oliveira and also retired around the same time. soO did announce his retirement 2 weeks ago, or no, 3 weeks ago, or no, 4 weeks ago, some time ago. But literally just before he did, Panda Bear Me released the project that he was teasing for close to a year about, his documentary about soO, StarCraft 2's biggest runner-up.
Let's go. Shout out to Isaac, shout out to Panda Bear Me. Not his first documentary that he has created, but he has been a big part of the StarCraft 2 community when it comes to being a pro player, when it comes to creating content, when it comes to creating documentaries as well. Very, very passionate, and he's a big fan, of course, of soO. It was a little bit bittersweet, as you mentioned, because he released this. It's after the documentary was released that soO announced his retirement. And I think he said himself that it felt awkward, like
he
releasing
was
this and
like,
then finding
"Yo,
out that it was going
bruh,
to be
what?"
retiring. It's like,
He posted like, "Bruh, seriously?"
for sure, for sure. So a little bit awkward for him as a fan to have released it at such a time, but at the same time, maybe a little bit fitting as well because it is a very,
Yeah.
very nice farewell gift for soO.
Absolutely. A very, very well made documentary as well.
Mm-hmm.
I would say there's a lot of archive footage that I didn't even know existed that yeah, he would have had to scrub through forums and like DM a few people and be like, "Hey, do you still have footage of this tournament or of this particular match in this game or what have you?" So very, very well researched and very well put together as well. Just
Yeah.
visually, it looks stunning, and it just narratively, it also flows brilliantly.
100%. I think if you've been watching his other documentary series, like he did one about Jaedong, for example, it's very similar where he does a really good job at building up a narrative, right? About
Yep.
talking about like, the beginnings of a player, through their career, through their early days, into like how they got into the form that they were in, their peaks, their highs, their lows. Like it is as you mentioned, a really, really well constructed story. And that's one of the best ways to make a documentary like this, right? To get you
Yep.
invested into the character, get you invested into the player, and hook you in.
Yeah, without a doubt. There's soO has had such a long career that Panda Bear Me pretty much recaps here. That there's a lot that I kind of forgot about. Like I am used to being somebody who came in from StarCraft 2, and especially somebody who came in from Legacy of the Void. My impression of soO is that guy from the WCS Signature series, right? Where he's like very humble, which admittedly this is after he came in second like 6 times in GSL and also a
Mhm.
couple of other times like IEMs and MLGs or what was it called, MSI something or another, an MSI tournament. And so yeah, he was already humble at this point, but yeah, I kind of knew about this, but I kind of forgot that soO started his career as this like cocky kid because he was almost kind of seen as this prodigy, and he was like, "Oh yeah, I'm gonna win in like by the end of next year or something like that." And it's like, yeah, it kind of cool to see how how Panda Bear Me put this together to kind of showcase soO's evolution, both as a player and as in terms of both playstyle and personality.
For sure, for sure. Like even for me, as someone who followed the majority of SC2 like quite intensely, there's a lot of stuff here from before it, right? From Brood War that I had no idea
Yeah,
about, right? Like I didn't know about his beginnings in Brood War, about his interactions with Fantasy, for example, and how Fantasy kind of
I,
fathered him in and
and
kind of mentored him for a long time.
and how soO was like, "Bro, who loses 4 championships in a row, dude?"
That was a really fun interaction where,
Yeah.
for those that are curious, soO, he had just gotten his first second place and he was really down about it, and I think it was it was either his first or his second place,
Yeah.
and Fantasy was trying to cheer him up and being like, hey, like I didn't win my first championship until getting 4 runner-ups in a row, and then SooO's like, 4? Wait, what's going on? He's like, wait, that's not gonna happen to me. And then
Yeah.
that's when Fantasy's villain art occurred. That's when he started like messaging Zest. He started, messaging Innovation. He really working
Yeah.
behind the scenes to make sure he would ruin
Yeah.
the day he uttered those words.
Yeah.
God,
Yeah. Yeah. Speaking of that a little bit though, speaking about you're talking about zest and innovation and whatnot. There's actually kind of a really good point that Panda Bear Me made in this documentary that I didn't really think of initially, but it does in a way kind of feel like his first and his fourth GSL, the one where he was against Zest and the one where he was against Innovation in the finals,
Mhm.
did kind of feel like he was doomed from the start just because of how the rules regarding Pro League worked.
Mhm. Yeah, I think it was I think that was really cool as well because that's something that I had never considered and it didn't really
Yep.
factor in too much at the time and wasn't really talked about. You're referring to it happened twice actually if you remember. It was
Yes.
specifically the finals against Classic
Oh, right.
where
I
yeah, it
forget.
was
Yeah.
Classic and
There was
Innovation
the
as well.
third and fourth.
Yes, yes, for sure, for sure. I don't know if you want to jump into one of those first with what happened with
Okay.
Classic.
Yeah, so Classic and soO, obviously, they were both teammates in
Mhm.
SKT, both very, very close as well. There are a lot of memes that came out about the two of them during their time in SKT, but
Mhm.
yeah, literally they both qualified for the finals of GSL, and literally the week of their match,
Mhm.
the week of their finals, SKT was playing in a match against KT, or not KT, but they were playing in a Pro League match against somebody.
Mhm.
And soO was on the roster for Pro League, whereas Classic, who was kind of an, I don't want to say an underperformer, but he was kind of somebody who the coach and captain of SKT at the time didn't really think was worth fielding. So he wasn't fielded in Pro League for that specific week. So Classic got to focus entirely on GSL on his
Mhm.
on his finals match, whereas soO, because of how teams were structured and because of how much Pro League was prioritized by the Kespa teams at the time, because obviously Pro League is what the and sponsors were more focused on, so Pro League was more prestigious, and so they wanted their players to focus more on Pro League. soO had to practice for his match, which was a ZVT, which meant that he did not have nearly enough time to prepare against Classic in a ZVP.
Yeah, yeah. As Yaku was saying, like Pro League is the event to prepare for, and they hyperfixate on Pro League. They get practice partners just for preparation for Pro League matches as well. Like they do take it very seriously, and because of that, soO got kind of screwed because he
Yeah.
had to focus on his on the ZVT
Mhm.
instead, and that impacted his performance in GSL negatively. So. Similarly, when it comes to innovation, it's not necessarily the same story, but innovation had just joined SKT at the
Yep.
time. That was after Acer disbanded, and he was kind of a free agent looking for a new team. He joined the Kespa team. SKT was a big moment, but apparently soO was kind of annoyed because it's like, oh, okay,
Yeah.
now you have
It,
access to so many
you,
to all my practice partners. Now you have access to so many more games that I played as well. It's not quite the same. It doesn't go back and forth because it's not like
yep.
suddenly soO has access to any history on innovation because
Eh,
innovation is joining his team.
to,
So like it's just giving innovation so much more of an advantage than soO got out of it.
exactly. To put this into perspective, innovation in that season of GSL was on Acer until the playoffs. Then it was in the quarterfinals where he was kind of a free agent, and then only in the semifinals did he officially sign on to SKT. So it was like, what the hell, man?
Mhm.
That
Yeah,
was a
yeah,
massive
for
bruh
sure.
moment for soO.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. It was really hype for the team. It was really great for the team, really great for innovation. But it means specifically for soO that suddenly like his opponent has so much more information on him, can study him, can ask his peers about him as well. Check their previous matches and just have a leg up when it comes to preparing for him for GSL. And that was like a big factor coming into that. So yeah, it was just really cool to hear these kind of like behind the scenes like factors outside of just the game that did impact and influence like the performances of the players themselves, and it just puts everything into greater context as well. So yeah, like I guess I echo what you said before, where like clearly a lot of work was put into this
Yeah,
documentary, right? Like there's a lot of research that went into like all of this. It
it
was great.
extremely well researched and extremely well written as well. Like you mentioned,
Hmm.
Panda Berry, he's just really good at constructing a flowing narrative and like
Hmm.
creating basically a thesis for this for this documentary, which is, hey, all of soO's losses are, I mean, a lot of them are due to the fact that his opponents were that much better than him at the time, but also it's not just because soO has this mental block, or soO had this mental block, like a lot of people were had kind of chalked it all up to in the past. There are also all of these other factors that were going into this that made it that were working against his favor.
For sure, for sure. And yeah, I mean, going into this, especially as like a longtime viewer of StarCraft, like this is also really nostalgic for me.
Yeah,
Very,
oh,
it's
absolutely. Like I'm sure
like
more so for
seeing,
you because you were around during Heart of Swarm, but
yeah, seeing all the players, seeing them in their prime, seeing the teams as well, seeing Pro League, seeing
the old
GSL.
uniforms, yeah,
Yeah, yeah, the not just the old uniforms, but like every season they changed the uniforms basically, and you'd have like
put
season
a new
after season,
sponsor
and you
in,
could,
yeah,
yeah, and you could track the evolution of their appearance by what year it was, what season it was.
yeah.
The games themselves, there were so many moments where they would cut to a game and
I,
they'd cut to the commentary, and I'd be like, I remember watching this live. I remember hearing this.
Absolutely, yeah. It was, for me specifically, it was IEM. A little bit of
Mhm.
BlizzCon, but it was specifically
Mhm.
IEM. He was going into the soO Serral match, and I was
Mhm.
instantly brought back. I remember staying up till like 4 a.m. to watch that, and I remember I was on the edge of my seat. I was like, yo, is soO doing this? Yo, is soO gonna be the first player to beat Serral since Innovation a couple of hours earlier? But
Mhm.
I mean, is soO gonna be the first player to eliminate Serral from an
Mhm.
offline tournament in over a year? How is soO doing this without 3-3? Like, what the hell? I was instantly brought back, and I have to admit, after watching that part of the documentary where he beat Stats in the grand finals, I immediately looked up soO versus Stats 2019 IEM Katowice because I had to watch it again. I had to relive that.
For sure, for sure. I think it's important to point that out because I think a lot of people forget that that was Serral in his. I mean, he is in his prime, but
That was just
it's like
after he won
Serral.
BlizzCon.
Yeah, Serral, he had already cemented himself as the best in the world, right? Like back in
Yep.
2019, like pre-COVID, like he was already the best in the world. So it was that much more important that soO did that. For me, it was less IM. For me, it was more BlizzCon. Like seeing that
Right.
that BlizzCon finals with, I mean, the entirety of
Against
like
Rogue.
as Panda Bear Me was saying in the lead up to the event, like BlizzCon was meant to be soO's tournament. Like everyone was
Yep.
hyping up soO
I rem
because of all the second
Absolutely.
places, and it
That
was it
that
was a heartbreaking finals.
that was the first year where I think I like seriously followed StarCraft 2 esports. Like 2016, I like
Mhm.
kind of followed on and off. Like I would kind of follow on and off. I was curious about Ryung a little bit. I was curious about the X Axiom boys, and beyond, obviously, I was a fan of him after BlizzCon, but
Mhm.
2017 was when I like seriously followed. Okay, I'm watching GSL, I'm watching SSL, I'm watching DreamHack, etc. And then I remember in all the forums and all the Discord servers and everything on Reddit, on TL, it was okay. soO came in runner up in 2 GSLs in a row again, but that's because it's to make BlizzCon so much sweeter.
Uh-huh.
2017, this is the year
Yeah.
of soO. And I remember even after that, towards the end, I think people were still in agreement. Like, sure, he might not have been able to win, but the narrative throughout the year, if we had a player of the year that was based more on that was based not necessarily on popularity, but more on how much buzz they were generating and how much people were talking about them. 2017, it would have absolutely been soO. I think Team Liquid ended up crowning Innovation, which, understandably, Innovation won the most things that year, but
Mhm.
the narrative was all about soO.
Mhm. For sure, for sure. Like 100%. And yeah, that's what made I mean, honestly, like that BlizzCon and seeing soO make it to the finals and fall in the finals, that was so reminiscent
Heart-wrenching,
of
yeah.
Jaedong. It was so reminiscent of Jaedong because Jaedong, he was the other Kong of SC2 as well,
Right.
and it was the same story where
2013?
Jaedong, yeah, the entire year, second place,
Correct.
second place, second place, second place, second place, made it to BlizzCon, and it's like, hey, it's BlizzCon. This is meant to be Jaedong's tournament. Jaedong makes it to the
He's the
finals, and then he
prince.
loses to SOS.
He's the chosen one,
Like,
yeah. I
yeah, and then
wasn't
he
around at the
goes
time,
down
but
to
I
SOS as
remember
well.
I wasn't
Yeah.
around at the time, but I remember reading comments. Apparently, like the casters were all pretty much in agreement. Yo, this is Jaedong's time. He is the
Mhm.
chosen one.
It was legit the same thing. The same story, the same thing where non-stop second places all year coming into BlizzCon. That's meant to be where he wins, and then it just at the finish line it just doesn't happen. Just does not happen. You know, Jaedong fell, soO fell, and I remember at the time I was like, I guess this is how the story ends. Like I guess it's just another Jaedong,
Hey, well,
just another Kong. And then I am, of course, but yeah, just again,
uh,
just so many memories,
I
just
mean
so
for
much
Jaedong, it
history here.
was Asus ROG. No, it
Yeah,
was
yeah, yeah. It
some.
was Aces,
Oh
yeah.
yeah, it was Asus ROG. Yeah, yeah. So yeah, they
Mhm,
were able to win stuff in the end.
mhm. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah,
But
yeah. Highly
yeah, for
recommend
that
this.
it's
We highly recommend this documentary.
yeah, it's just really well done. Really well. I think it might be from the SC2 documentaries that I've seen, I think this might be the best one. Or at least
I
like
full wholeheartedly agree. The best one that was
Mhm.
independently produced. I think we can at least agree on that.
Yeah, for sure, for sure. Just
Because we have like
and
what's it called? State of Play. The ones
mhm,
that were, but those were semi indie and also semi like
mhm,
that was indie, but they also had like funders. They had like backing,
mhm.
right? to make that. For those who are curious what we're talking about, State of Play, the two StarCraft 2 documentaries. One of them was the first one that came out around how the Swarm era was specifically following Jaedong, the pro, Impact, the at the time technically a pro, but still hadn't made his like big breakout performance yet, so he was referred to as a semi-pro, and somebody else who was an amateur who was considering going pro. Who I should go back and look at that. I had to see. I wonder if they ever did end up breaking into the scene, but yeah, that was a semi-professionally produced documentary, and they made another one, or the same guys made another one with the same name called State of Play, following MVP specifically, his rise and
Yeah.
fall after his injuries.
Yeah, it's one of those things where I think it's important to say that those had a bigger budget. They had a bigger budget.
Absolutely.
They actually flew around. They interviewed. They got a bunch of footage, of course. Like there's a lot more, I mean, quote unquote production value there. And that's what I kind of wanted to get at here is that this shows that with pure editing, you can create something
Yes.
like this, right? Like that there was no flying around, and I do believe he did have an interview
Yeah.
with soO, but it was just over like Discord. Like it wasn't like
Yep.
it wasn't like an in-person thing with camera and everything. Like no, like this is all just from footage that already exists out there. Just as you mentioned, just like took a long time to piece it all together, to edit it all together. I mean, there's the reason why
To
this took
write
a
it
year. Yeah,
as
took a
well, to
long
actually
time.
like figure out how to connect things from one scene to the next and from one point to the next.
For sure, for sure. Which is why it's impressive. It's just really impressively constructed here. Despite the limitations, despite the lack of budget. Like sure, there's a Patreon that can help out, but the Patreon isn't too large. So yeah, big shout to Panda Bear. Big shout.
Yeah, absolutely. Everyone go watch it.
100%. 100%. So yeah, with that, that is our first kind of documentary that we do talk about. Shout out to Luis GG in the chat. Thank you so much for the raid. Hope you guys had a great stream. Hope you guys had a great ladder session. As welcome one and all to the podcast. Very quickly, something that I did want to talk about this though, Yaku, is that especially after seeing this. It brings us back to the fact that like there's just so much to tell with StarCraft.
History.
There's just so much that's happened.
Absolutely.
Yeah. And like after reading the interview of Oliveira, I'm like, they could totally just do this before Oliveira as well. Like you can do it for so many people in the scene.
I'm sure SC Boy would be more than willing to do so. They just kind of need the little spark of inspiration.
Exactly. Like,
although, yeah. I was gonna say, I'm sure SC Boy would love to do it, and I'm sure they would do a great job of doing it as well. But unfortunately, it would most likely be in Mandarin, which I mean, the unfortunate truth is that would end up limiting the audience somewhat. Like even if they put subtitles in, like it's weird, but there are a lot of people nowadays who hate subtitles, so I feel like that would limit things a little bit, which would be unfortunate. But yeah.
Yeah, for sure. But like, there's just so much potential for like documentaries like the soO one, right? Whether it's following, Penan, Innovation, TY, Dark. Like you can fixate on any player, pick like a moment in their career, and just send it.
Which is why if anybody would like to fund my Byun documentary, hi. It's on the back burner, right? I have not started writing that at all. No, but seriously, I genuinely think that's one of the coolest stories in StarCraft 2. Byun being the first teamless player to win. It would be very well received if anybody were to do either a documentary or a biopic about it, or a documentary
100%.
biopic.
Yeah, it's a little bit shocking.
If anybody has plans to do that, I'd love to get involved in some capacity. If you need a narrator or somebody to help with research.
Yeah, it's a little bit shocking that no one's done anything about that, right? Like everyone knows about Byun, everyone's followed that story. Like it's such a rich part of S2 history, and that hasn't happened yet, right?
Yeah.
There's just so much. There's even a lot when it comes to modern StarCraft as well. When it comes to Sterile, when it comes to Clem, especially.
And that Clem documentary is in the works, so.
True, soon TM. True, yeah. Shout out to
This might reveal my bias a little bit, but Mana, maybe? From
100%.
One of the earliest foreign champions, one of the earliest foreign pros, having kind of a lull and kind of underperforming for a very long time until Legacy of the Void when he kind of got a second wind, and it's like, yeah, he was already quite a bit older than most of the other players who were competing at the time, but still managed to be very competitive, still managed to beat most of them.
Yeah. I'll always remember WCS Premier League Europe. The event in Poland was huge, and for Mana, I brought this up multiple times. I think already in PondCast. The moment
Yep.
we have Mana winning on stage, and then his girlfriend jumps up, and then they have like they have their moment together. The camera pans around them. You know, you got the Blizzard execs like, or everyone like in the crowd cheering for them and stuff like that.
Yeah,
It's
standing
just
ovation.
beautiful. That's just ingrained into my skull. So yeah, there's again, yeah, you just pick a player and just go
Yeah.
for it. There's just so much there.
Scarlet
One
winning
day. Scarlet,
IM, was it
yeah.
Pyongyang or yeah, I think it was Pyongyang.
Yeah, it wasn't IM, it was
First,
God. It was
it was the
WCG, WESG, something like that.
No,
One
it
of those.
was IEM, but it was
Mhm.
integrated with the Winter Olympics. So it was technically the Winter Olympics, but it was collab. It was partnered with IEM.
There you go.
Pyeongchang,
Uh-huh.
not Pyongyang. That's a different city. That's a very different city. Oh,
You're like, I am Penan. I am like, so good, yeah, so good. But yeah, there's like Scarlet, MMA, right? Like MMA, there's so much to go there.
I love MMA. You know, scratch that. Screw me on doing MMA.
You're like, look, I need to make priority list. Okay, there's gonna be some that come first, and then the others. Okay. But yeah, definitely, and shout out to Panda MMA, shout out to Isaac as well. Crank for sure, Crank, Axiom.
From player to streamer, yeah, or caster, yeah.
For sure. And that leads us into a documentary series that's in the works. We should emphasize that as well. Every time one of these interviews comes out, we should mention that these are the raw interviews and that the documentary itself, that the content itself is still going to be in the works after all of this is released. And that is the Zombie Grub GLHF interview series.
Indeed. This week, with a subject or somebody who is very near to our hearts, Maddox. From Korea, the translator for most of these GLHF interviews, and yeah, kind of the go-to translator for anything SC2 related when it comes to Korea as well. Talking a lot about StarCraft's history, how big it was in Korea, how I mean, he mentioned it as well. Literally, his first exposure was he went to get a haircut, and on the TV at the barbershop, they were playing a Pro League match. Which really just goes to show how big it was back then. Something else that I kind of appreciate that he went into a little bit was kind of the role of the chaebols and the big corporations and how they wanted to. It was really them looking at esports as potentially something, as potential like business investments. That was a big thing that helped StarCraft take off in Korea specifically. And yeah, apart from that, something that was very near and dear to us specifically, because I feel like we had a very similar story, was talking about how he himself feels like kind of a newcomer into the scene, because 2018 was when he first started following StarCraft 2 after not following it for years, and then 2020 specifically being his breakout year during the COVID era, which I remember watching now, I was like, that sounds familiar. I wonder who else this applies to.
Yeah. This interview reminded me a little bit of the Gemini, the GGE mini interview, just because a lot of this is from the fans' perspective, right? Where Gemini was talking about like the early days of Wings of Liberty, and here Maddox was talking about the early days of Brood War. Talking about watching all these players, watching all these matches. He gave a lot of his thoughts on the perception of some of these like rivalries and like players as well back in Brood War. Like he definitely had a lot to say, which was really cool to hear. Again, there's just another perspective when it comes to the origins and the early days of StarCraft.
Yeah, the very, very early days. And it's kind of two perspectives, right? Because he's talking about the history of Brood War quite a bit, and he was a mega fan of Brood War in his own words, but also for SC2 specifically, what it's like to be somebody who is kind of new and kind of came in just as Serral was becoming the best player in the world, right? Just as we had GSL versus the world, just after Pro League ended. Like Maddox wasn't around during SC2 Pro League, much like I wasn't. So I mean, he was around for Brute War Pro League for sure, but yeah, that's an era that he mentioned that he kind of missed out on. That he later like looked at VODs to kind of give himself more of a perspective.
Yeah, it was really interesting to hear, right? Like his origin, where he was talking about how he was, helping Crank at the time when it comes to translations, when it comes to subtitles, for Crank's own content, and then that kind of Crank kind of gave him the opportunity to, work internationally, right, as a translator,
Yeah.
and he jumped on it. Some, especially newer people in the scene, may not remember. It is kind of weird how this kind of phase out did occur, but Smix used to be the go-to translator. She used to be the host plus translator, 2-in-1, sort of thing. And for so many years, she was just an ingrained part of the SC2 esports scene. And then over the years, stepped away, focused on other aspects of her life. Still in some esports capacity. I think she started focusing on FPS. And I think she was working at Twitch or something, or she was working at no, not Twitch.
She manages, what's her name? Pokimane? One of these other
Yeah.
streamers agencies.
Yes, she works at a streamer agency. That's it. And that's what she started focusing a lot of her career on. And as we kind of lost Smix, that's when Maddox and Seltzer kind of like stepped in to kind of fill that role and to have that kind of translator and host kind of like role in SC2.
I mean, this is going to be part of another thing that we're going to be talking about here, but it's also kind of funny where it's like you mentioned Maddox and Seltzer kind of stepped in, and it's like, I mean, Seltzer hosted way back in the day.
Yeah.
It's like technically it's true that she stepped back in, but there's also people who are like have no idea who Seltzer was.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, everyone started in SC in StarCraft, right? Like that's the saying. Like, what are the League of Legends casters? Do you know who they are?
Valdez?
No,
that's Valdez? You mean
that's not what I'm getting at. Do you know Doa? Doa the
Doa.
Yeah, like Doa, like he started in SC2, for example. A lot of people don't know that. So if he came back, like that'd be the same thing where it's like, oh, he's like a MOBA caster. Or I think he switched to Overwatch when Overwatch came out.
Yeah, some of them switched to Dota 2 as well.
Yeah, and it's like, oh, like he's back, and it's like, he's back. What do you mean? It's like, oh no, yeah, he kind of started in SC2.
Coming in, and we're like, oh yeah, no.
Yeah, he's a cast GSL. So there's like so many people in the esports started in StarCraft 2.
Heroes now.
Yeah, Calder, right, for example. Todd, who, now mainly does Heroes as well. Sorry, now mainly does Warcraft 3 nowadays.
Yeah.
But yeah, like as you say, like there's definitely...
I miss Todd. Supply.
We heard him casting a lot because of the SoO documentary. You hear Todd in the background. It's like, yeah, I miss him, Oh my god. But it was great to hear from Maddox once again when it comes to this documentary series of the GLHF. One of my criticisms is it is very much so centered around Brood War, early Wings of Liberty like era. And because of that, even though like Maddox, he did talk about stepping into interviewing and stepping into translating, and he was talking about like his first IEM and all that. He had his own stories to tell. They did not talk about anything modern, anything over the past like 2-3 years sort of thing where like Maddox, I'm sure he has a lot to tell. I'm sure he has a lot of like stories from behind the scenes and his own experience and things to share. But once again, this interview series doesn't really focus too much at all as to modern StarCraft.
Yeah, and on the one hand, I mean, I guess that is kind of the point of this documentary series, is that it is meant to be focused more on the early days when things weren't really as well documented. I mean, there was a GLHF interview that came out recently that we're not going to be talking about this week, but it kind of goes into that a little bit about how in the early days things just weren't documented well at all. And so, yeah, I get that is kind of the point. But on the other hand, for some of these people who have been around for a very long time, getting their perspective on the evolution, right, of the scene and of the game can be really informative as well. I think Crank was the only one who really went into that in the very first GLHM interview, but yeah, the rest of them not so much.
Yeah, and I think it's a shame just because, like, even if the purpose of this documentary series is meant to be about the early days, it's meant to be about Brood War, about Wings of Liberty, about Heart of the Swarm, about the earlier era of StarCraft, like, I don't think there's anything wrong, especially if you're paying for all these flights and if you're going to Korea, if you're going to Europe, I don't think there's anything wrong with even just getting footage and getting information about modern StarCraft just for like later use sort of thing. Like you already have this person, it would be really cool to ask these questions. I'm referring to whether it's talking to Maddox, whether it's talking to GRG, whether it's talking to Ryung, because it's one of those things where as time progresses, it's like, you know, then it would be nice to actually have like, you know, some footage about this era, because then this era becomes more historic, right? Like it's
Right.
yeah, it would just be nice to have heard that, just because I'm sure he has a lot to say.
Yeah.
So that's once again, that's probably my biggest criticism, because it's like we're reaching the end. It's like, well, I feel like we barely scratched the surface of Maddox's career, right? Like it's it's like, you know, it'd be cool to hear like, you know, how he evolved as a translator. You know, I know
Yeah.
there's a lot of like Maddox has a lot of like, I don't know if I want to say controversy, but a lot of like a lot of challenges that he's had to overcome. I don't know if you remember,
Right.
but like there were times, I think even a year ago, where like Maddox, I think he was like selling his PC, like he had some money
Yep.
issues, and he didn't know if he was gonna continue in StarCraft, and it was just a really dark time in his life, in his career. And then, you know, something happened, and he made the decision to commit, and then he got more opportunities, got to fly around. He it worked out for him, but like there's a lot there. You know, you know, it'd be nice to talk about it.
Yeah.
It'd be nice, you know, just saying. But sure, whatever.
Yeah.
It's fine. It's fine.
It is what it is.
Yeah,
We'll
yeah,
see how
yeah.
it comes together in the finished product.
Yeah, we'll save that for next time. Next time we'll ask him about it. But yeah, once again, really nice interview, really nice perspective hearing from Maddox. Definitely very passionate. It's always very wholesome where, you know, uh, the final question is always the same, and for good reason. I'm sure there's going to be a big segment of that. It's like, what does StarCraft mean to you? And we typically always get something very heartfelt, something
Yeah.
very meaningful from the person being interviewed.
Yeah.
But yeah, that was the Maddox GLHF interview. As you alluded to, there are more GLH interviews to come, and we will do our best to cover that next time as well.
Yes. Thankfully, one of them that recently came out is part one of a two-parter. So
Yeah, I was about to say that like we can just talk about the Tasteless one in its entirety, because there is a Tasteless interview as well. We'll get there. We'll get there.
yeah.
For sure. Speaking of interviews, speaking of content here for StarCraft, another big one was released here by the StarCraft historian.
Indeed, one of his longer ones, I think, or one of the
Mhm.
longest ones that he's released to date. Demu. This was conducted, I think, this year at IEM.
Mhm.
This year at IEM, I say this year, last year at IEM 2024 at IEM Katowice, and yeah, this is very similar concept, just going through his experience, his time in the game, and how his life as well, just how he got started in esports and how he started getting interested in pro gaming and how he went from more of a pro gamer to more of a caster. And yeah, something that I thought was really cool about this one as well was they actually talked about other games quite a bit.
Mhm.
Wasn't just StarCraft and Warcraft 3 here.
Yeah, I think this is another. This kind of goes along what we've been saying the entire time. Is like, pick a person, and you have
Yeah,
just so much content to get into. You know, out of left field, you know, we're talking about MMA, we're talking about Björn. Bam, the Muslim. It's like, oh yeah, I guess the Muslim. You know, he probably has a lot to say, and then he's got his own story, right? Everyone has their own story.
yeah.
Getting
And
into gaming, into esports, into eventually StarCraft, with his own
and
pro gaming career.
yeah, and I will say, one that I was not at all aware of before watching this interview, so
Yeah,
I'm glad it's out. I'm glad that this interview was conducted.
yeah, right. As you say, right, especially when it comes to newer viewers or newer fans of StarCraft, like I don't even know what
You're
EG
calling me out
means
here.
to you, right? Because like
E,
EG was not a
yeah,
thing by the time you
E,
started watching, right? Like,
absolutely. And to me, I have no. I know a little bit about EG. Like I watched some of the
Mhm.
old content that EG used to make in the Team House, mostly
Uh-huh.
because Total Biscuit mentioned them in co-optional podcasts every
Hmm.
now and then. But that's it. That's all I know. In Control to me is a
Hmm.
caster. I
Uh-huh.
don't think of him as a player
Yeah,
or
yeah.
as a team manager.
Exactly, right? Like, what does Huck mean? Do you even know who Huck is? Like, do you?
Yeah,
Like, what's
Huck. He's
yeah,
the Overwatch guy.
yeah, like yeah, he's like the president of
He's the guy.
Overwatch. You know,
He's the
he's like,
president of Overwatch. Yeah.
God damn it. So yeah, it was really
It,
really nice hearing
I
from the Muslim. Go on.
I will say I know I know some smatterings here and there. EG is actually like specifically the Dota 2 division.
Mhm.
EG is super popular in Singapore.
Mm.
Uh, there are a lot of EG fans here, but yeah, so I knew a little bit of smatterings here and there. But in my mind, as a newer fan, I looked at the EG TL rivalry and I thought to myself, okay, TL is still involved in StarCraft. They still have a roster. They still do events. EG is not. I'm Team Liquid for life. And then later on, Oli Moly and Crank got involved with them as well. So I was like, all right, even more reason to.
There you go. There you go. Uh,
To go EG. It's not showing up in my background.
it's not. It's not. It's.
Let me turn it off real quick.
uh, 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 we can kind of see the fanfare a little bit. We can. It's fine. It's fine.
It's kind of tricky to do so, but okay. Look, it's somewhere. If you, exclamation mark Discord in the chat, somewhere in the pinned.
There you go. There you go. But yeah, it was really cool hearing, you know, his introduction to you know, StarCraft, right? He was talking. I mean, even before that, into Warcraft, he was talking about how like, oh, no, yeah, he was just, you know, he was just like kind of like a ladder hero in Warcraft 3. He didn't really know anything about esports, and then one of his friends just kind of had him like just kind of
randomly
pressured him.
invited him to a clan.
Yeah,
that was
yeah. He's like, oh.
competitive.
Yeah, he's like, oh, like play in this tournament. He's like, tournament? What? Sure, I'll play. And then he won, and then he's like, oh, you qualified for the main event. And he's like, main event? What?
Which fun fact is exactly how we got Milk and Cookies to join CranKy Ducklings.
True.
It's exactly how Light got Milk and Cookies to join CranKy Ducklings.
True. Playing SDO. Oh my god! So yeah,
Milk
like
has been there since the beginning. He was one of the original Crank viewers.
Nah.
The narrative.
But yeah, it was really cool.
Milk was here before any of us.
Very OG.
The narrative.
But yeah, so like to hear that from the Muslim was really really cool, especially because again the early days, you know, the early days of esports, esports wasn't really too much of a thing, right? Especially in the West.
Yeah, and as you were mentioning, especially in the West, how he would like, I mean, his family knew what he was doing. His family was very supportive, but he would just hide it from everyone else, from his friends, because he was kind of, he didn't want, he thought it was kind of embarrassing. He didn't tell his school what he was up to, because obviously, you know, missing school for competitive tournaments in any setting, unless you're like a top level Olympian, that's difficult even to this day, but especially in like 2004 2005 for a video game tournament, you're never getting any, like, there's absolutely no way they're approving that.
There was such a wholesome story there where you heard how supportive his family was, which is really cool to hear. It's not always the case. It's not always the case with a family supportive. I mean, we, especially when it comes to the Koreans, we hear time and time again that the family structure does not want someone to pursue pro gaming. Even in Korea, where it's a lot more established.
Where it's meant to be the Mecca.
Yeah, exactly. But it was really wholesome to hear that his family, once they saw the Muslim competing, like they were very much so behind him. And there was that one moment where he spoke about how his school called up his parents. Mom, They called up his mom, being like, "Hey, you know, your son, he's missing school." And then she's like, "Hey, he's not missing school. He's representing the nation,
the country." Yeah,
exactly.
He's doing it for the queen.
He's like, "What are you doing for your country?" Right?
They're like, "What? We're educating the youth of our country." It's like, and how's that working out for you? I hear one of your kids is missing over in Singapore.
Oh god, that was so wholesome to hear. It was so wholesome to hear, like his parents like acting or reacting that way and be behind him. So. Really cool to hear, and hearing like, you know, the rest of his introduction to StarCraft, competing, as you mentioned, right, like kind of with In Control. A lot of people nowadays, they think of the Muslim either as a caster or the AoE 4 guy, and less so as a player, even though he competed for a very long time.
Absolutely, he was very consistently the second best player from the UK throughout his career.
True, true.
And multiple times it was usually either I think Bling towards the end
Bling,
of
yep.
his competitive career. I think Risky kind of
Uh-huh.
overtook him there.
Yep, yep.
But yeah, he was very
I was
competitive for quite a while.
I mean, he was a good player. He was a good player for sure. I was talking about his transition into casting, how it was very natural to him because he was always kind of casting anyway.
Yeah,
He was always
and
like getting involved. Mhm.
and I loved hearing his perspective on specifically one thing when he started casting. The one thing he wanted to do was kind of just explain the thought processes right
Mhm.
behind a player seemingly making a mistake when yeah on paper it's like yeah you probably shouldn't have done that, but the
Mhm.
Muslim, because he competed for such a long time and because he's admittedly not a perfect player, I mean he would 100% talk about this himself. He has his weaknesses as a player. He can actually
Mhm.
understand what it's like as a player when you're in a tough situation and you have to make a decision, and it's half the time it's not the correct one.
Yeah, yeah. I do think that's especially the case, especially early on. I don't think that's the case anymore. Whereas basically what Yaku's referring to, Damazan was saying that one of the reasons why he really wanted
His pet
he
peeves,
wanted to
in a
cast, and one
way,
of his pet peeves, yeah, was casters questioning pro players and what they
kind of
do,
unfairly
and especially
criticizing them. But
yeah, yeah, when they would do something poorly or do something bad, or they
I,
would make a decision, but there's typically a reason
I,
for that
yeah,
decision, and the Muslim would always try to
I.
make it clear that is the case. Mhm.
Ironically, nowadays I feel like it's the players who are guilty of that when they cast now.
Yeah, true, true. You're not wrong. You're not
Like the
wrong.
casters are the ones who are giving the players a lot more slack, but it's the other
Yeah.
players when they get put into casting desk. It's like, man,
Uh-huh.
Yona, he shouldn't have done this. Hashtag washed up.
Uh-huh. Yes, infamous player casting, where if anyone messes up in one way, it's GG then and there. It's over. But yeah, yeah. As we're saying again, it's just a really in-depth interview. Again, really good to hear his
Mhm.
story, to hear his perspective, to be reintroduced into the
I,
Muslim as well, especially if you are not
yeah,
as familiar with him. Yeah, I think this does a really good job
I,
at just showcasing the Muslim
yeah,
as a person.
absolutely. And like you said, this is about the Muslim, so I don't want to drag too much away from this, but I do want to play devil's advocate for one aspect of their discussion that they had
Uh-huh.
here, which was the talk about how the Muslim was mentioning this and how looking back in the Warcraft 3 days, a lot of people were kind of worried that like StarCraft 2 or AoE or whatever was gonna take over, and how in hindsight that's a little bit silly. I'd like to play devil's advocate for a little. I'd like to play devil's advocate here and say that yeah, it is a little bit silly, but it's not an unwarranted concern, so to speak, just because RTS is kind of a very niche genre. It doesn't have the largest player base, and especially if we're
Mhm.
looking at RTS games that were released by the same publisher or released by the same developer,
Mhm.
like was the case with Blizzard, there is a precedent of cannibalization of the player
Mhm.
bases, of people just stop playing one Blizzard game and just moving into another one pretty much immediately and not really moving back. I mean, even and this is more Blizzard specific, but even across genres, we saw this
Mhm.
in 2016 when Overwatch came out. There was a mass migration from the Heroes of the Storm player base into Overwatch because Overwatch had similar-ish Heroes mechanics, and the
Mhm.
people who had been playing Heroes for a very long time were like, "This is new, this is fresh, and this is what I'm gonna spend my time doing nowadays." Right? The Muslim,
Mhm.
he was talking about how he bounces. He when he streams, he goes from StarCraft 2 to AoE 4 to Warcraft 3, and his stream doesn't really mind, and he's able to do that pretty consistently. But I think for the vast majority of players out there, it's they have their one game and they
Mhm.
stick to it, and it's not so much that because that's what they're investing the majority of their time into, and
Yeah.
it's not really ideal, I guess, but that's just kind of the reality of the situation. It would be
Yeah,
great if more
yeah.
people were, bouncing. If more people had this rotation of games,
Mhm.
right? To one day I'm playing this and next day I'm playing that.
Yeah,
But that's just
basically the
not the case,
Muslim.
unfortunately.
Yeah, he was talking about how the fans of a lot of esports are very tribalistic. They're very tribalistic,
Yeah.
and because of that, they are very much so. Even if they say one thing, they're very much so protective of the esports that they follow. Of course, what he was
Right.
referring to specifically in a way was how a lot of people say that they're RTS fans, and
Well, not
they're not.
really.
They're
They're
StarCraft
StarCraft
fans, right?
fans or AoE
And
fans because
yeah,
these games are pretty different.
yeah, and you see that a lot whenever a new game does come out. Like we saw that with AoE 4, where even like
Hmm.
there's not even Age of Empires fans. There's AoE 3 fans, there's AoE
Yep.
2 fans, there's Age of Mythology fans, and there's a lot of like infighting that happens whenever a new game
Hmm.
comes out, whenever they try it, then whenever they don't like it, whenever they go back. It happened with StarCraft, right? It happened with
Yeah.
StarCraft 2 when
Brood
that
War
came
versus
out.
SC2, yeah.
Yeah, where some Brood War players went over, some did, and then went back, right? Some never even tried. Like that does happen. It's happening with Stormgate at the moment as well, where everyone wants to be into Stormgate. They expect it to be the next SE2, but likewise Warcraft 3 people expect it to be next Warcraft 3. AoE people expect it
Yeah.
to be next AoE, right? Like they have their own expectations for a game that isn't necessarily realistic, and it kind of ends up leading into like how they react and how they act regarding or in reference to the game that's coming out, and that is arguably a problem, right?
Yeah.
Where these people they want one thing, but where they're gonna get something else. So
Yeah.
yeah, it is really interesting to hear from him, especially as you said, considering that he is someone who does kind of bounce between games, so he has that
Hmm.
kind of perspective looking at that.
Yeah. I think it's mostly just time investment, right? For most players, for most more casual players, or
Mhm.
semi casual. By that I mean people who aren't like playing for 6 hours a day, but they still play ranked and whatnot.
Mhm.
It's they only have so much time that they can really invest into one competitive. They only have so much time and so much mental energy to focus on. So they just pick one competitive game, and there's nothing wrong with that. And if that's all, there's nothing wrong with that, obviously. And it's your time is limited, so you use it however you want. If you prefer using your time for this, then that's completely understandable. I'm a similar-ish way, where usually if there's usually I play one multiplayer game, and that's the only one I play for like weeks or whatever before I go
Mhm.
into something else. I'm not like the Muslim where I can cycle daily or cycle weekly or something like that. But
Mhm.
yeah, the state of it's just a state of having multiple different esport titles or multiple different competitive titles within the same genre.
Yeah, because I'm
Same
pretty
with League of
sure it's
Legends and Dota 2. There are some
yeah, League of
people. I
Legends.
I actually know a few people who do play competitive. I actually know a guy who was one of the top Dota 2 players in Singapore. Switched to
Mhm.
League of Legends for a while, did really well in League of Legends, and then switched back to Dota 2. It's kind of like Marine Lord in a way. Did
Mhm.
really well in StarCraft 2, then switched to Overwatch, did decently in Overwatch, came back to StarCraft 2, did well again in StarCraft 2, switched to AoE 4, did really well in AoE 4.
Mhm.
Like I know some people who are
Yeah.
able to do that, but for the vast majority of people, it's just not worth the time to learn more
Yeah, I
than
mean,
one.
change is difficult, especially when you're with something for so long, right? Like StarCraft has been around for what 15 years, and there's people that have been around since the beginning of that, or even less. But still, like they it's something that they care about, something that they're very fond of, and I don't blame them necessarily. I'm not quite like that either, right? Like I enjoy watching Brood War or even Warcraft 3. I watch Todd from time to time. It's like it's always a lot of good fun.
Yeah.
Same with AoE 4 as well, but. Yeah, it's definitely something that is very much so applicable to current year because of Stormgate, right? And
Yeah.
Zero Space and Battle Aces and all these new RTSs that are coming out. There's definitely
Mhm.
a lot of talk, a lot of criticism about them, a
RTS
lot of even
Renaissance,
hate
as
as well.
people are
Yeah.
predicting.
Uh-huh.
Watch them all get eclipsed by a turn-based strategy game coming out this year.
True. Oh
Civ
no! Watch
7,
them all get eclipsed
less than
by
a month.
Hearthstone with its SE2
Hearthstone
theme. Yeah,
SC2.
exactly. Exactly. That's gonna take over.
Uh,
Uh-huh.
I was alluding to Civ 7 coming out in about a month, but yeah.
There you go. There you go. But yeah, so we do recommend checking out the
Yep.
interview. Again, it's a lot of fun. Definitely, it was really cool to hear the story of the pork chop as well. If you don't know, Yaku, there's just
Yeah.
so much controversy
I've
about
heard
that.
about the pork chop because back in
Uh-huh.
a couple years ago when they had the 20th StarCraft anniversary, where they actually managed to invite Idra and Huck
Yeah.
to a special event in LA, they sat both of them down. I was like, so what went on with the pork chop? And then Idra was like, yeah, so I made pork chops one night and then they were missing.
Uh-huh.
And I thought Huck took them. And then Huck was like, I didn't take them, bro. I swear. And Idra was like, right. Like, they didn't explain anything that went on. They were just like,
Uh-huh.
you took the pork chop, didn't you?
Yeah, as the Muslims
actually
said,
explained
like,
it. Actually gave more of a background.
yeah, as the Muslims
And-
said, uh-huh.
Yeah, no, I was gonna say gave them more of a background, and also, yeah, really interesting to hear just how EG. I mean, I knew that they were badly managed. I heard that they had a lot of like really greedy business practices that screwed over the players very badly. But
Mhm.
I mean, it's also really interesting to hear how they kind of bred animosity within the team by just outright favoring Huck, like playing favorites of Huck, and Huck wasn't even aware of that at times. He wasn't aware that he was kind of the golden boy. I mean, obviously he got a really good contract, but behind the scenes, yeah, EG just bred this animosity within them.
Yeah, it was just
amongst the
poor.
players.
It was just definitely poorly managed, right? It was definitely poorly managed as a team, unfortunately. He did, of course, go into it a little bit more in depth. What I was going to say is that when it comes to the Portugal story, like the problem there as well is that, as he mentioned, Huck did have a reputation of being very cocky and being like that kind of person. So if he says something like, is he really, is he actually
really serious?
being honest or not?
Yeah.
Yeah. I remember hearing this from his perspective because back in the day there was Remax, which was another SC2 talk show, and I think Huck he delved into it himself from his perspective. And I love that at the end of it, the Muslim's like, yeah, it wasn't Huck. I'm pretty sure it was Machine. I'm pretty sure
it was Machine who ate it and forgot that he ate it.
Yeah, like despite like Huck's reputation, I think he is being honest and he had nothing to do with it. But
I like that. And I like that the evidence for that is specifically because the entire time he was at the EG house, Huck kept ordering takeout and never knew that that there was a fridge.
Yeah.
This is before Uber Eats.
Exactly. So definitely fun tale to end it on, and yeah, just really interesting interview. Do check it out again. Shout out to StarCraft historian because he does not just interview here with the Muslim, but he's been doing a lot of interviews throughout the course of his own career, not necessarily being a caster, but his own content creator, also in his own way chronicling the history of StarCraft.
Yeah, recently put out another videos more specific on Brute War. Which, unfortunately, we weren't really able to. It released just before we were able to really get into it. So, just check out SC Historian's channel overall. There's a lot of content there.
Yeah, we'll be catching up next week with that video as well. As that wraps up our current content videos that we were going over, and that takes us into another big change in StarCraft 2, and that is the fact that Big is no longer in SC2.
Not since Cyril leaving Ents did I have such a visceral reaction when I read news of a player leaving their team. Once again, I read the news on my screen. I mean, Kuro posted something. I looked at it and I just flat out shouted, "What?"
Yeah, for those that are curious, Showtime was recently announced that he has left Berlin International Gaming. BIG, I feel like, has been one and the same with Showtime for a very, very long time.
Absolutely. He was, very similarly, the only StarCraft player on their roster. And he was, obviously a big name in the foreign scene. BIG, obviously, really liked having him on for that amount of time, but unfortunately, the future of StarCraft 2 does look very uncertain, so somewhat understandably, I think BIG is just looking to cut costs a little bit and not take any risky ventures like continue to support a player in an esport that is very uncertain.
Yeah, it's and as echoing what you said, right? There are certain players where like their teams are very much so ingrained with their personality. Yes, Gabe and Mouse, for example, I would say now Clem and Team Liquid, right? Like
Yeah,
they're just
absolutely.
one and the
Mana and Team
same.
Liquid.
Yeah, exactly. They've been on them
Yeah.
these teams for so long, and you can't necessarily think of one without the other. This was the case with Big and Showtime, and now no longer a partner, no longer together.
Yeah. Hey, this hits hard. Definitely, it hits hard not only because, like you mentioned, they were together for such a long time, and Showtime was obviously very happy being on
Mhm.
Berlin International Gaming for that long, and but also because yeah, it feels kind of worrisome, right, for a team to have supported a player for this long, and for
Mhm.
the most part, not, at least from what we could see, not having any problems, suddenly disbanding their SC2 roster.
Mhm.
I Yeah, I have to admit it does send a little bit more doubts. It does weigh a couple more doubts in my head as to where we're headed from here.
Yeah, it doesn't bode well. It doesn't bode well whenever
Yeah.
you see something like this occur. So it is definitely sad to see these two parting ways 100%. I wish, Showtime the best, and all we can do is really just just lie in wait and see what happens, right, with the future of SE2, with the future of these teams, these players as well. There are certain teams that of course left the door open, but there are
Yeah.
others that haven't necessarily
Falcon, yeah.
done so.
Others who have actually made some investments in the scene recently.
Yeah.
Falcons being one of them. Vitality obviously re-signing Maru till 26.
hmm Even more than that, actually, but yeah. Um,
2026, what I mean.
Yeah, no, sorry. I'm pretty sure it's more than 2026. Am I crazy? I think it's.
No, it was 2026 in the announcement.
Okay.
Okay. There you go. There you go. So, yeah. I guess we'll have to just wait and see. I think we mentioned this before in December that we expect some kind of announcement coming to January here.
Yeah.
We'll see. We're halfway through the month. We'll see what happens. See what happens by the end of January
think-
if we do get an announcement.
I think somebody pointed out that for 2023 or either 2022 or 2023, the EWC announcement for StarCraft 2 only happened in February. But I mean, obviously the circumstances were different back then. It was a
Yeah.
brand new thing, so
Mhm.
yeah, we'll see. There's still a couple of weeks left before
Mhm.
before I start unboxing my copium supply.
Yeah, exactly. It's you know what, a little bit off topic, but I don't know if you've been following the EWC Twitter, but mate, like the teasers that they've been doing feel a
But they
little
will.
bit
It feels a little bit like I don't want to say mocking, but a little bit like
feels out of touch. It feels a little bit
yeah.
out of touch, maybe a little
At
bit
this
tone
point, it
deaf.
is mocking.
Yeah. Like, because it's happened
Yeah.
like I want to say like 3 or 4 or 5 times where they keep posting.
And then-
hey, we missing anything at EWC? Are we missing
Yeah.
anyone?
And
Are
it
we,
was,
are we, is
and
that,
that
are
was
we,
like
are we...
right after they were like, okay, what's the number one thing that you would like to see that we haven't announced?
that's what
And
I mean,
literally
yeah.
everything was filled with SE2,
Yeah.
bros. Come on, SE2. And then like a week later, they were like, so anything we missing?
Yeah, I'm
Like-
pretty sure they've done it like 4 or 5 times where they've alluded to that kind of question multiple times, and you always get StarCraft spammed in the responses and no response. It's like what's
I want to
happening
say,
here, really?
I want
What's
to
going on?
say, because as much as like that is one thing, like them asking this question is one thing, because you can still interpret it that they're like speaking to like whoever, like whatever other scene. But they have specifically made a post about StarCraft 2 about how everybody is spamming them with questions. So they
Yeah,
clearly like publicly acknowledge
So clearly
that
they
is
know,
happening.
yeah.
that was a really weird one. I think it was like beginning of December when they said
It-
like, when you ask about EWC and then StarCraft is like in your like DMs or something, or like they
It's
made
like
that reference.
when they're like, you've made your voices heard. We hear your concerns. And then
We
that's
missing
it.
anyone?
And then they never
It's
say
like-
anything else. And then they just pause. Usually it's like, we hear
Mhm.
you. We have something in the works, or we hear you. We're gonna ask.
Uh-huh.
But this one, it was just they stopped after that. It was like, we hear you. You wanna keep making noise?
Yeah, that's it's very weird is what I will say. Very weird when it comes to whoever's handling their social
Yeah.
media. That intern, he's got it in for us. I
mean,
so mhm.
Yeah, I mean, nah, I mean, I don't want to get into it too much. I was just gonna say, I mean, I'm hopeful that if EWC does, because at this point it's like this is pure copium because ESL is tied, for better or worse, is tied to EWC.
Mhm.
I'm hoping that even if there's no announcements from EWC, we can get something else to replace things. I mean, again,
Yeah.
not to get too personal into things, but my dream is to get dropped from EWC and to go back to the old days of ESL Pro Tour. Just due to my own opinions on how EWC is managed, but I know that that's not realistic at this point. Because again, for better or worse, ESL is tied to EWC.
Yeah, for sure. So we'll keep an eye out for any announcements coming into January. And likewise, best of luck to Showtime in his endeavors in his career, in his endeavors when it comes to looking for a new team as well. Best of luck to Showtime. That also leads us into our next announcement. That is the return of the StarCraft Evolution League.
Indeed, literally announced like an hour before we went live. Thanks, Hyper One. But yes, Hyper One did make this announcement. ESL, SEL, same letters, man. You mix them up. SEL did take a little bit of a break in December. They had their grand finals, the grand November finals, and they took a little bit of a break. But they are coming back in November, February 1st of 2025.
There we go. So yes, as you mentioned, so previously the StarCraft Evolution League was a bi-weekly tournament, but now coming into 2025, they are turning into a monthly. It's going to be a monthly tournament instead. So they are restructuring their format. To make up for that, they are boosting the prize pool for this monthly tournament, and they're also creating a double elimination format as well. So despite there being less events, it is going to be a bigger event, and more matches are going to be available as well.
Indeed. And not to worry, for those who did like the grand finals format or the league finals format, we're still gonna have one here. We're still going to be having a grand championship, a final championship for the season that tentatively is scheduled for July or August. So same thing as the last season, or roughly the same format as the last season when it comes to progressing throughout the league. It's just the individual tournaments themselves have been reformatted a little bit. It's the same league structure, I should say, but a different format for the monthlies.
Exactly. So look forward to that. Of course, here on the CranKy Ducklings, we have always been casting StarCraft Evolution, and we will continue to cover it in the form of the monthlies and in the form of course, the main event as well. So look forward to that. And keep an eye out for the next StarCraft Evolution here on the CranKy Ducklings. That leads us into our events of the week. Up first, we have the Patches 5.4K Winterfest, kind of an end-of-year finale here, or start of 2025 for Patches. Patches, of course, he is a map maker. He has been hosting his own amateur events for quite some time at this point, and he did have an end of year event here to kind of wrap up and celebrate winter.
Yeah, it's the end of the year, so yeah, what a better way than to have a nice little send off to the community. This one specifically, as the title suggests, it did have an MMR limit. Nobody above 5.4K could participate. But something that I find pretty cool was they also have a little bit of incentive for lower level players to participate. Best player under 4.4K MMR, this time won by a Finnish Protoss player by the name of Cos Phoenix.
Yeah, he plays in our amateur events, so a big shout out to Ghost Phoenix, as he is a very regular competitor in online tournaments. Much love. When it comes to the main events, again, a lot of players that you should be familiar with. A lot of these are semi-pros, if not pro players that we have casted many times. We have Draconics, we have Flexi, we have Angry, we have Inexorable, Akedon, Iosop as well. All these players, Mixu, off racing.
And they play Terran as well. That's very fitting. Angry.
Yeah, true. Yeah, we have casted and rated Angry a couple of times. And it was great to see a back and forth. I don't know if you saw there, but Angry took out Inexorable in the first round, in the quarterfinals, I should say, the upper bracket quarterfinals. And then they had a rematch that went all the way to the ace match in the grand finals.
Yeah, that's a little bit of back and forth going on there.
For sure. So very well done there. It's Inexorable. He does bring it back here from pretty far into the lower bracket, actually. So a very nice run to fight his way back up and to make it all the way through into becoming our champion.
Yeah, I just noticed a glitch on Wikipedia. It says Grand Finals Best of 7, Upper Bracket Finals Best of 5.
Yeah,
I don't think that's the case.
Yeah, it hasn't quite been. There's a bit of an error there. So should be best of 5 finals, best of 3 upper bracket finals. So that does have to be corrected. It does happen from time to time. It's all good.
Yep.
With that, congratulations to Inexorable, and we look forward to seeing more of Patches in the future. Bearing in mind, I do know that currently he is still working on his maps, as TLMC submission phase is still open. And I did see him streaming the other day, and he is touching up his maps and making sure that he can get them as ideal as possible
Yep.
for those submissions.
Yep. 2 weeks before the deadline's up, so you got some time.
Yeah, he's got some time. Got some time. So best of luck. Best of luck to Patches. Much love when it comes to running his own tournaments. Meanwhile, when it comes to StarCraft Evolution, I mean,
Yes.
maybe we should have thrown this a little bit closer together here. This is not quite StarCraft Evolution. This is Warcraft Evolution instead. As shout out to the WTL admins, they did host a Kung Fu Cup spin-off fun event here featuring a mod where you have StarCraft Evolution based StarCraft Brood War up against Warcraft 3.
Indeed. Apparently, there are a few mods like this, but this one specifically was Warcraft Evolution. I remember in the WTL Discord as well, some of the organizers were like, "Yo, can we get the hookup with whoever the SE Evo author was? Because we need to know a little bit more. We like to refine this a little bit more before we actually host our tournament."
Mm-hmm. Exactly. I don't really know how this came together. As in, it's a mod that I've never casted before. I've never seen it
Yeah.
before. I should even say. So I don't really know how balance works and how these races interact with each other, and just whether or not it's as chaotic as it sounds. So, but it sounds fun though. It does sound fun.
Yeah. Yeah, and very similar to SE Evo, the StarCraft Evolution League, where we have you never have mirror matchups. You'll never have Warcraft versus Warcraft, StarCraft versus StarCraft. It's StarCraft versus Warcraft every single time. Every single time, and yeah, unlike SEL, where it's losers pick for who plays which version of the game. In this case, it's more fixed. It's the first game, player 1 StarCraft, player 2 Warcraft. Second game, player 1 Warcraft, player 2 StarCraft. Game 3, it's up to them. It's up to them to decide amongst themselves.
Yeah, and it was really cool to see this featured. Whether it becomes a regular event, yet to be determined. What I
Actually-
found most interesting.
Yep.
Actually, the second edition has just been announced during this broadcast. And additionally, it was also announced that there is a Discord server which now also involves the creators of the mods, so people can directly talk to them if they have any questions or concerns.
Fantastic, because I was about to say, I too would love to see more of this, just because I want to see Orcs versus Protoss. That's all I want. Orcs versus Protoss and Undead versus Zerg.
There you go. What I found really exciting about this event, though, is that randomly, MaxX played. Which is, yeah, I mean, it's not like MaxX played in StarCraft Evolution. Yeah, so randomly we saw MaxX getting involved. Hearthstone makes sense because he's a content creator. Like, it makes sense for Hearthstone to be
and
there.
Also, he started in Warcraft 3.
True. Yeah, you're not wrong. Young Yakov dipped in. We have seen Young Yakov play in SEL, but yeah, it's really cool to see Young Yakov dipping in. Maxed came out of left field. Like, Maxed, I haven't seen him compete in a very long time.
Max Pax, that would be a nightmare.
That would be beautiful. We almost got it. And shout out to Loliet. Loliet is a Warcraft 3 pro. He's a Warcraft 3 pro player. So
true.
Yeah, not in SE2, so they brought him in. I don't know how they contacted him, but he made it all the way to the finals. Yeah, he is a Night Elf player, and yeah, really cool to see this all come to pass. Again, I'm curious about checking it out myself. Fun fact, I was provided the replays of this event, so we will be casting it ourselves, and I don't know what I'm going to step into. I might even drag you on Yaku
I'm
to
jumping
cast
into
together.
it. I'm jumping into it 100%. I'm jumping into this 100%. A lot of people don't really know this. I've never played WoW, but I do keep up with WoW lore because I just like the Warcraft lore.
Have you played Warcraft?
So I'm jumping into it. I played the human campaign, and
okay.
So,
I don't want to say anything that will
Brood
incriminate myself. I don't want to say anything that will incriminate myself. It's I don't own Warcraft 3, is all I'll say.
I see. It's fine. Don't worry about it. Yeah, so just like Brood War, where you played the Terran campaign first, you played the human campaign, and that's all you played.
Because it's the first one. Yeah, I got to get Arthas to. I got Arthas to kill a bunch of civilians, and then that's I think where I ended. I just never picked.
There you go.
I just never picked it back up after that. But I watched Craig play all of Reign of Chaos.
Yeah, there you go, there you go.
So
So
I know what
yeah, I look
happens.
forward to it. Yeah, for now we can just have a look at the score lines. We have no idea how the matches themselves turned out. I do look forward to seeing how the races interact with each other. What I find really interesting is the fact that SE Boy have interest in this mod and less so StarCraft Evolution. I say less so because if you remember, there were some StarCraft
Yeah,
Evolution show
show matches.
matches,
Yeah.
yeah, during WTL. So there were some show matches,
Mm,
but I don't know if we've had
I
something like this.
I I would imagine it's something. It's more to do with how things kind of coincided. Is how I'd say.
Hmm.
I mean, I'm sure that SC Boy has interest in StarCraft Evolution, and like you said, they hosted those show matches
Hmm.
back at the start. But I think it's possible that they didn't. That back when SCL was kind of getting off the ground and becoming established, SC Boy was focused more on some of the other events and some of the other like WTL and whatnot. So they didn't really plan to do
Hmm.
anything. And then after that,
True.
WTL kind of fell by the wayside. They kind of saw SCL was already its own thing, and they thought, well, we'll let SCL do its own thing, and then we'll do something else, which was WEL, Warcraft Evolution. Yeah, that works.
Yeah, it's one of those things where, as you said, because there's no WTL, because I have more free time to host other events, we could see this become more of a regular thing. Not necessarily talking about the next Warcraft Evolution Cup, but these more one-off events or these
Yeah.
more like spin-off events occurring, whether it's with StarCraft Evolution, whether it's with SE2, whether it's with 2v2 events. Like remember the big 2v2 event for WTL that they had with Cyril and Oliveira working together. Like
Yeah.
maybe they dip their toes
Team
into that again, sort
Oliveira
of thing.
versus Team Hark
Hmm.
or
Yeah,
Dero,
yeah.
depending on how you look at it.
For sure, for sure. So yeah, we could see them branch out even more coming into 2025.
Yeah. I like this mod. It reminds me of Heroes in a way.
Hmm. Fair, fair,
Heroes of the Storm. Do
fair.
are there hero units not for the
They
Warcraft
must be.
side? There has to
Yeah,
be,
that,
right? Because that was like
that's
what a lot of
that's
Warcraft 3 was balanced around.
yeah, that's all they are. Yeah, is the hero unit. So I'm sure that is somewhat a factor coming into it. But yeah, I
And
guess we'll
then
find out when we cast.
but then there are quests in Warcraft 3, right? So that empower the heroes. So it's like
Not quests, but there are minions, right? There are
shops, right?
minions.
There are minions that you kill to get gold, and
Hmm.
then you buy
Yeah.
items for your
Hmm.
heroes at shops.
Yeah. Yeah, you pose a good question when it comes to when it
Yeah,
comes
yeah.
right, do the heroes do they have item slots? I can't imagine they do, I'll be honest. I can't imagine they do in this mode, but
Yeah,
maybe that is definitely
maybe
another thing to factor in there.
it could just be like a case with Root War, where it's like you have the one big hero unit, and then that's it. They're tougher than their normal counterparts, like how NORAD is tougher than a BC, but that's it.
There you go.
Raynor is tougher than a Vulture, and also starts with the upgrades, but that's it.
Well, you know what? We'll find out together, Yak. We'll find out together when we do get around to casting it. Until then, we do have our show match
Loktar
series.
Gar versus Entaro Adun.
There you go. There you go. But we do have our show match series coming up ahead of us. We have the Basilisk Big Brain Bats number
Yes.
80, of course, your weekly show match series. And we had an
This was a
interesting
big one.
pairing. Yeah, we had some interesting pairings here. Fun fact, Chem and Special, they do get out.
Yes.
And this is after the 2v2 tournament. If you remember, we hosted the Uthermal 2v2 event, and a special came. I should say, Cham dragged Special out of retirement to play in that 2v2 event. And right after that, it looks like Special he got an itch. Then he want maybe they had some drama when they were playing together. They were yelling at each other on comms,
Are we
and
gonna
then they
have
decided
to? Are we
to
gonna
duke it
have
out
to?
here.
Are we gonna have to marriage counseling this again? Are we gonna have
I
to
think this is
pull out our
I
marriage
think
counseling?
I think this is the counseling. I think this is what this
Is the
is.
counseling, Special? He's like, he goes to Cham and like, "You're no TY."
Uh-huh, uh-huh. I 100% guarantee you that Special blame Chan for their losses in the 2v2 tournament.
Yeah.
100%,
Yeah.
100%. So,
Like,
yeah,
if Taeyong were here, if Taeyong were
uh,
my partner.
exactly. So basically, after they yelled at each other, after Special threw some shade at Chan, he proved that Special was the dead weight on the team. Oh, no,
That sounds
as he
mean.
takes Special.
That sounds mean. Knowing Special's
Uh,
weight loss journey.
true,
that dead
exactly.
weight.
No, as Cham does take it 3-1, 3-1 over Special. But again, as we were kind of alluding to, Special he is very much so pseudo retired. Like he doesn't
Retired,
compete
yeah.
anymore. Yeah, he doesn't compete anymore.
He
He's not
shows up
necessarily
every now and then in like an OSC, but
Mhm.
it's not regular by any means.
like once every 6 months sort of thing. So yeah, it is really cool to see special once again here. But again, currently Chem is the king of Latino America, and Chem does secure himself here with the win.
Yeah. Like Special's like, "What are you doing?" Champ's like, "Succeeding you, papi."
True. Oh no. That also leads us into the other matches. We have Dave Litos versus Ernianak.
He said is fine, but
Okay.
it's like Irish Gaelic or something. It's not
Uh-huh.
the full thing. It's pronounced like
Fair
something.
enough. Fair
It's
enough.
named after some kind of mythical creature from Ireland.
Yeah.
But yeah, he said he's fine just going by air.
There you go. Shout to, Dave Littles. He is a regular on our
Yep.
channel. Does tune in, is chilling in the chat more often than not. So great to see him competing here and getting a 3-0 big win.
Yeah, absolutely. I was gonna say Dave Litas. He's in our channel. He's in our Discord, and he is somebody who is very enthusiastic, I should say, when it comes to improving and when it comes to competing as well. So, I mean, he's usually hitting people up, and people are like, "Hey, anyone need a practice partner?" Dave is usually there, and it's like, "Oh yeah, I could use some practice." So, yeah, like you said, it's real cool to see him get this 3-0 over here.
Oh yeah. Really, really impressive result there out of Dave Littles. We had once again the rematch between Young Yakov and Wayne. If you recall, we did see Young Yakov bring Wayne down in Fire Cup, the November edition. And if you recall, it was in the December edition where they did not play in the playoffs because Young Yakov, he got upset by UD Soldier.
Yeah, it feels like every week we have them switching places.
Mm-hmm. For sure. But the dominance continues here. So Young Yakovi did take down Wayne in Fire Cup. In the December edition, they did not play. They did not face off, but now they get a chance to duke it out. And once again, Young Yakov with a 3-0 here. Once again, bringing Wayne down. So again, we've seen, I don't want to like confirm it yet, but like Young Yakov is definitely nipping at the heels at Wayne when it comes to, the best Zerg player of the region. Is definitely on the rise. And Wayne, if he's not too careful, he's gonna be replaced. He's gonna overclass it.
That's where you're gonna go with. I thought you were gonna say he's gonna go back to being Radata.
He's gonna devolve into Radata. Oh no. Aye. So yeah, really solid results here out of Young Yakov. Was that best of 5, and that led us into the big main event here: MaxPax versus Cyril.
Yes, and a result that I think surprised a lot of people, but I'm gonna be honest, like I wasn't surprised. MaxPax taking that series 3-1.
When you say you're not surprised, is this because like we've seen like Shin beat MaxPax like 3 times in a row, and he's like, it's pent up aggression? Is that what? What that is?
Yes. That's what it was. I was gonna say I'm not surprised because MaxPax he's got a vendetta against Zerg.
Yeah.
Solar he's on his villain arc. MaxPax he's looking to beat him there.
100%. I'm with you lockstep here. Where we have seen MaxPax struggling as of late. When it comes, I say struggling, he's still the dominant player, but we have seen more Zerg players bring him down in recent times. But this is a big win, big result here for MaxPax to bring down Several. He might be starting his own villain art soon because, we'll get into the results. He has since fallen here to MaxPax. We also recently saw Several lose to Hero as well, also in the PvZ matchup. But we'll get there in the Lily Cup.
Yeah, indeed we shall. I like the theme
that
we had for this big brain bouts as well.
Yeah, it feels like a lot of infighting is what
Yeah. Unresolved traumas or issues.
For sure. It's like big brain bouts, like Civil War edition or something, or like therapy edition. I don't know. Like Aye. So I hope the players feel zen and tranquility after these matches, and I hope they've gotten it out of their systems. GG, well played. Congratulations to those that did win. Meanwhile, we have another fun, in a way more NA or just different form of show match series for the first time. We have the Kirktown Ready Room #1.
Indeed, this one organized and hosted by our good friends over at Dave Testa. And interesting name is what I'll say.
Yeah. Welcome to the Ready Room, where they featured a plethora of show matches. Bearing in mind as well that this is NA in more ways than one when it comes to the name, but also when it comes to the maps, as they did throw in a bunch of more unorthodox maps out there. They added Among Us, of course, Star Child, Moonwater. Some of these are TLMC maps, some of them less so. So yeah, just a really unique map pool for
Where
some
did
fun show matches.
Where did I see Star Child before? I remember that map.
No, yeah. I think that was a TLMC map. Yeah.
Right. I like that one.
Never,
I'm glad
never
they
made
did,
it.
make
Did
so,
place
yeah.
highly until MC, but never made it past
Yeah.
that for some reason.
Sugoma. You'll have to see it.
SMH, my hedge. When it comes to the matches themselves, here we had a best of 5 between Magnath and Patches. Did notice Magnath in the chat earlier, so
yeah.
GG, very well done, taking down Patches 3-0.
Yeah, congratulations over there, Magnath. Used to compete in a lot of our amateur events way back in the day, has since transitioned to doing a lot more behind the scenes work. I say behind the scenes work. He was the official Arabic caster for a lot of events for Gamers 8 and whatnot, but yeah, I also understand that he does a lot of adminning for them too, so it's cool to see.
Yeah, really cool to see the growth of Magnath when it comes to competing and improving as a player, or as you mentioned, casting, adminning, work behind the scenes. So GG, well played here to Magnath, clearly showing that, hey, he's still got it in him to play and compete as well, not just to cast, not just to admin. Likewise, we did have more show matches here between Baby Marine and Hydra here in another TVP. A lot of TVPs actually, I just noticed in these show matches.
Yeah, and not a single Protoss victory here.
I mean, no, except for Magnath, of course.
My narrative.
And Maples, and Night Phoenix. I mean,
the narrative.
what are you talking? What are you trying to say?
The narrative.
God damn it. So Baby Marine takes down Hydra 3-1. Baby Marine, he has been on the rise as of late. Similarly to young Yakov, Baby Marine, after he left his team, after he left the Platinum Heroes and his current teams, he kind of picked up by Streamer Zone. He has been on that rise once again. He has been on that grind and has been improving a lot.
We talk about players in their villain arcs. Baby Marine. He's Sasuke.
Who's Naruto?
Rainer. He's Itachi.
Oh no. I was very confused. I was like, oh, I see. Rainer, he killed his entire family? Question mark.
Yeah.
What are you trying to say?
He killed the entire Platinum Heroes.
Oh no.
And now Baby Marine, he wants revenge. Who's his Naruto? It can't be Jumi, because Jumi's already... It has to be Geralt?
It would be fitting if it's someone on Streamer Zone. Yeah, you're not wrong. Yeah, maybe Geralt. Maybe.
Or Night Phoenix? Oh no, not Night Phoenix. Night Phoenix is not Streamer Zone. I want Night Phoenix to be on Streamer Zone. That's why I say that. But yeah, he's not on Streamer Zone.
I feel like if Jumi is Baby Marine's Naruto, is Eva Sakura? Is that what we're saying?
That's exactly it. Yes, we have the love triangle coming in.
Oh no. Not like,
no. Eba's not Sakura. Eba's the fox. That's in him. The demon fox.
Oh no, true. It all makes sense now. But they're all ex-platinum boys, so it makes sense as well. Yeah. Oh god, what is happening? But yeah, okay, sure. I'm on board. I'm on board with this. I'm on board. All right, so Sasuke does take down Hydra, 3-1 in the end. And
all right.
So GG well play. That leads us into Night Phoenix versus Mixu, a matchup that I would have said would have been in favor of Mixu. Actually, Night Phoenix has not been as active as of late.
I would say specifically if Mixu played his main race, which he didn't for game number 1, but yeah, for the rest of them, but then again, Night Phoenix also didn't play his main race in game 1. Yeah, so it was an off race to start things off, and then the next 3 games were their main races, and I'm 100% with you, Light. I think that Mixu has been a lot more active recently in things like OC King the Hill, in some of the more local Finnish cups as well. So for Night Phoenix to come out and 3-1 him, that bodes very well for him.
It does, it does. What I will say is that I don't know how much we can really delve into this just because of the maps, right? Just because the maps are
True.
most likely all of these guys playing it for the first time, right? So like that is like an X factor that does kind of shake things up a little bit, but still impressive performance here by Night Phoenix, impressive by Baby Marine, impressive by Magnath. Bjorn takes on Geralt at 3-1. Again, Bjorn here was the heavy favorite, and shout out to Geralt for taking the initial map as well, for making a series out of it, but Bjorn does come out on top. Likewise, has led into what I would say is the highlight match of the night, an NA match between Maples and Foxer.
Indeed. Very, very close series. Or rather, I should say, two players who I would rank very closely neck and neck next to each other, and I think the series absolutely proved it. The score absolutely proved it. Went all the way to the ace match, and we did see Maples coming out on top.
There you go. Maples does take it down the ends. The ape himself, if you will.
Yeah.
It does take it.
Aples, yeah.
Uh-huh. Not wrong, not wrong. But yeah, so I mean if you had to watch one of these series, I would definitely, make sure to tune into Maples versus Foxer, but I'm sure all these matches were a lot of fun, especially when it comes to featuring some of these otherwise unseen maps as well. Maps that never quite made it into the ladder map pool are worth checking out. So do definitely tune into the VODs here, as Dave did cover all these matches on his channel.
Yeah. Available there.
There you go. There you go. That leads us into our regular weekly Open Cups. We have to kick things off the KSL. The Korean Soccer League number 67 was this weekend. And oh boy, we did have a plethora of PvPs. Hero had a deep run. Hero, of course, was a champion, but Hero, he is often the champion of KSL. What was most surprising, though, was it was not a PvZ finals between Hero and Dark.
It almost was.
Hmm?
It almost was, but in the end, Zaun beat Dark to make it all the way to the finals, and wasn't quite able to finish things off there, wasn't quite able to take the win in the end, but did put up one hell of a series, took it all the way to the ace match.
Oh yeah, did take it all the way to the ace match. So very impressive performance here out of Zaun. Zaun, he 2-0'd Shin and he 2-1 Dark. Zaun, historically, I would say, and I will still stand by, PvZ is his weakest matchup. PvZ, that is one of his weaker matchups here. He is more known against Terran and Protoss. So for him to take down Shin and Dark, very impressive.
Absolutely.
Oh yeah. So it does overcome that. Also, before we get into more of these Open Cups, I do apologize. I did miss the OSC. But the OSC Season 12 Championship is also underway.
Now. It's all gone. It's all messed up. The overlays, they're falling apart.
You changed the timeline.
Oh no, what have we done?
Converging.
But yes, we do have the OSC Season 12 Championship to go into here. The event has begun. If you remember, Yaku, we were talking about how this is most likely going to last all month. But we had the first round concluding for the championship.
Try it all year.
Not wrong, not wrong. The lower bracket has yet to really get underway, but the upper bracket, the first round has concluded. We had some crazy results coming in. Skilless takes down Young Yakov 3-1. Nightmare takes down Rebellion 3-0. Cure versus Creator, that went all the way to the ace match. We casted that match yesterday, actually, and mate, that was a banger. Honestly, Creator, he almost won that. That was a very close series, very close.
Yeah, I can see that.
For sure. We had Cristiano taking down Minovik 3-1, and we had, I would say, a big upset. The biggest upset here, Wayne over Classic.
3-1 at that. It's one thing if it was an ace match, a full game series, but this, looked pretty dominant here from Wayne. Looked pretty convincing from Wayne, I should say.
Oh yeah. This is also a series that we casted, and if you missed the VODs, I do recommend checking them out. They cheese the hell out of each other. This is not a long series. The looks can be deceiving. Game 1, Wayne 3-base all in Classic. Game 2, Wayne 2-base all in on he 2-base all in Classic. Both Game 1 and Game 2, Classic didn't scout. Classic did not scout. He didn't.
That means that on Game 3, he 1-base all in Classic.
No, Classic all in Wayne. But yeah, they was very short series, very aggressive series. First two games, Classic did fail to scout and failed to recognize how much danger he was in, so he was caught with his pants down. Game 3, the opposite occurred. Actually, I should say Game 3, they all in each other, and Classic did come out on top with an 8K 3-base all in with Blink Stalkers. That led into the final game, where once again Wayne was able to catch Classic out to just a very aggressive series. We didn't really get to embrace a longer later mid game and standard game between the two of them, but it was a lot of fun. It was a lot of fun. Big shout out to Wayne for winning that in the end. Shameless takes down Homeowner 3-1. Similarly, actually, to Wayne versus Classic, as you can imagine, Yaku, Homeowner all in the
In
hell out of
shower,
Shameless
yeah.
every game. Yeah, dude. Filthy, pappy, filthy. Yeah, Homeowner he all in every game.
Yeah.
100%. Yeah.
It would have been more surprising if he played standard macro games all for the entire series, yeah.
Not a single time.
Once,
not
yeah.
a single time. Not once. Not once. Aye, aye, aye. So best of luck to all the competitors in the second round, which we are going to be casting tomorrow, by the way. Nick Rack versus Skillless, Nightmare versus Cure, Christiana versus Wayne, and Clem versus Shameless. Do recommend checking out whenever we do cover it. Yeah.
Yeah, whenever we do cover it, such as tomorrow.
There you go. There you go. Likewise, the little bracket is also underway. Meanwhile, that leads us back into our Open Cups. Again, shout out to Hero for winning the KSL. That leads us into the WarDTV Monday number 18.
Indeed, that is where we're headed to, and once again, a lot of PvPs.
Oh, yeah, I mean, it's online tournaments, but it feels like a little bit more so than previously. We have a lot of PvP, as you mentioned. Classic, he was able to have a good run himself. You know, took down Gumiho in the quarterfinals. Went up against MaxPax in the finals themselves. We had Hero having a very strong performance. If you see here, Hero, he 2-0'd everyone leading into the finals as well. Here, he did have his match against Dark. They were deprived of it previously in the KSL, but here in WarTV Monday, Hero does take him down 2-0. And then MaxPax did have a strong performance against Hero in the finals.
You think Hero's mad at Dark in this tournament? He was like, how could you not make it to the finals? It should have been me versus you, not me versus Zound. You made me play a PvP!
All the therapy sessions. All True. But yes, Hero does bring Dark down and falls to MaxPax. Very strong performance. We have seen MaxPax stumbling in PvP as of late, so it is good to see him kind of regaining his footing here, able to bring down nothing but Protoss in this tournament.
And nothing but PvP, nothing but 2-0s, except for the finals, which was a 3-0 in a PvP.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Strong run here at MaxPax, showing that he is still the king of PvPs. Heading on over to the Pickasaur Monday number 15, we did have once again, it shouldn't be a surprise, Hero versus Dark in the semis. it happened again. Hero, he 2-0s Dark. It is what we expect to be seeing when they also face off against each other. But similarly, I'm pretty sure because of the Euthermal 2v2 tournaments and because of the Bassus show matches, Cham played in the Pickasaur Monday for the first time. For the very first time.
Yeah, he was actually awake.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So clearly, you know, that
pretty good run,
competitive
too.
drive. Yeah, that competitive drive was in him, and he had a deep run making to semis. He took down Jumi to make it here. He took down Mute as well. Went down to Clem, but it's Clem, so I mean, he's best player in the world. So no shame in going down to him. But it's really cool to see that for whatever reason, Cham, he is, you know, reinvigorated. He is motivated to play again, whether it's in this show matches. Really cool to see.
Well, he doesn't have Juanito on his back anymore, so.
Yeah, he dealt with him. Cast him aside. And that led into the grand finals best of 5 between Clem and Hero.
Yeah, where we have seen them go back and forth quite a bit in these past couple of weeks, but this time, Hero takes a slight edge, 3-2.
Yeah, big win here. Hero takes down Clem. Clem is still the best player in the world, but there are players like, you know, MaxPax, like Hero as well, that can threaten Clem, and this is a big win here for Hero. What I should also emphasize is that this is the first time that Clem has played in a Pickasaur Monday in quite some time. I don't know if you remember, but we were, you know, talking about Trigger, right? We were talking about Trigger's influence, and now Clem, he has stopped being a degen, and he stopped staying off of these tournaments, and he's been absent for quite a number of months at this point. But something happened, and now he's back.
Yeah, something happened. They played 2v2.
It's really it all comes back to the 2v2, mate. Like unironically, like something happened there, and that definitely did kind of hit these players in more ways than one. So yeah, whether it's Special and Cham or even Clem and Trigger.
Yeah, it's definitely one way to test your relationship.
Do you think it's because Clem and Trigger, they didn't win the 2v2 tournaments that Clem, he's now like like lashing out against Trigger, and he's like, you know what? You can't tell me to go to bed, and then he stays
No,
up.
I don't. Maybe.
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 Well, what's your interpretation? What happened between
My
Clem and Trigger?
interpretation is more of after losing the 2v2 cup, Clem looked at that and was like, okay, that means I need to get stronger. For you, Trigger.
Oh, I see. I see. He's like, I'm doing it for you. And Trigger's like, I don't want this. He's like,
Go
I
to
want
bed.
you to go to bed. Oh, no. Oh, no. And in the end, Hero won. Hero beat Clem. There you
Yeah.
go. Sent him to bed.
Yeah.
Knocked him down.
With one
Oh,
shot.
God. There you go. So GG, congratulations to Hero. That leads us into our next tournament. Again, Hero, he's been cleaning house. Hero, he won the KSL, he won the he won the Biggest Roll Monday, and now here we have a Lima League, where also purely PVTs, Protoss, Terran, just all over the place here, and Hero takes another win.
Beats Gumiho, beats Zikorak, beats Creator, 2-0s all of them, and then drops one map to Cure, but ultimately takes the W in his 3-1 victory over Cure in the finals.
Oh yeah, he had a very impressive run here in this tournament. We also did cover this, of course, on the channel. Had a very, very, very dominant performance, is what I will say. And yeah, Cure, he also did well, making it, of course, to the grand finals. Then we had a banger of a TVT between Ryung and Cure. Like that was also a very back and forth and very close match between the two Terrans.
As one can definitely imagine. Ryung, the TVT sniper, facing off against Cure, who has access, shall we say, to Clem's brain. Hasn't quite committed fully yet. Hasn't quite decided to emulate his idol by playing Protoss in every TVT. But yeah, Cure historically has had some pretty good TVT as well. So. Yeah.
Yeah, he really has. He really has. Takes down Trigger, takes them down, and does go to the finals against Hero. Hero does come out on top. Now, if you're curious, where are the Zerg players in this tournament? Where's Solar? Where's Dark?
Rex
Where's
right
Shin?
there.
There is Rex. True. Shout to Rex, by the way. Shout to Rex. But the reason for this is because the Lily Cup Group C, I believe, was happening at the same time. It was occurring at the same time, and Group C involved Shin and Solar. So Shin and Solar, they were actually playing in a different tournament. That is why they could not compete in this tournament, as they did overlap.
Yeah. It's unfortunate, but
Yeah, there's just a lot going on. It's a busy month. It's just a very, for sure, very busy month. That leads us into the big events of the month as well. That leads us into first the Masters Coliseum. That leads us into the main event here, where we do have the group stage, which has concluded, and the playoffs have begun.
Indeed, we actually have some results here from the playoffs. A couple of players already being eliminated.
Yeah, exactly. The playoffs did occur last week. We had 3 days of the playoffs. We had the first round of the upper bracket, and of course the first round of the lower bracket as well. And as you mentioned, we do bid adieu to our first 2 players of the tournament.
Yeah, Spirit and Gumiho going to be departing from the Master Coliseum. Especially it feels bad for Spirit in particular. Buying out in this fashion after just barely making it through.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, we were praising Spirit's TVP earlier. You know, it's definitely a matchup that he thrives in, that he looks very strong in. But alas, Estrella had his number. Estrella playing at 4, 5 a.m. in the morning. Like it's a rough time for Estrella to play in this tournament, by the way. But despite that, did overcome, and he was looking very impressive this night in Master Coliseum.
Do you think he stayed up or he woke up early?
He woke up. He was huffing down as much coffee. He drank like 2 cups of coffee in that one series. It was crazy. He was not holding back. So yeah, impressive performance there by Estrella, and likewise Zaun had a very close series against Gumiho. Very close, went all the way to the ace match as well. That could have gone either way. And with that, these are the last Terran players out of the tournament.
I just realized that. Yeah.
They're out.
Nothing
They're gone.
but PvP, ZVZ, and PvZ here. Yeah.
Yeah, the group stage was brutal. We mentioned at the time, if you remember, but Oliveira retired. Otherwise, I feel like Oliveira was a sure thing
Hmm.
out of the group stage, but he did not, as he did step away from the game. Of course, Maru had a really lackluster performance, had a really rough showing in Group C, and Clem did fail to make it out due to a technicality.
Yeah.
So so we lost. I would say like the biggest Terran players in the tournament in the group stage already. Of course, Gumiho is a big name, don't get me wrong, but Gumiho to face off against Several in the first round was brutal and went down to Zaun, and arguably Zaun's strongest matchup, one of his strongest matchups. So yeah, it's definitely a twist and a turn that I don't think we really expected to see Terran out of Master Coliseum already.
Yeah. Shocking, definitely.
Yeah, for sure, for sure. And that means that tonight, by the way, in not too long, in like half an hour, by the way. So we're thankfully we're about to wrap up, but in half an hour we're going to be
Oh,
jumping into
we'll still have
the
time. Nice.
yeah. In half an hour, we're going to be jumping into Hero versus Rainer. The upper bracket semifinals, they are going to be occurring here this week. We kind of glossed over it. We had some one-sided first round upper bracket matches. Hero 3-0'd Estrella, Rainer 3-0'd Spirit, Max 3-0'd Zaun, Cyril 3-0'd Gumiho. To be fair, when it comes to all of these matches, I don't think we really expected much else. Like there were definitely some heavy favorites in the first rounds. Maybe hoping that Gumiho would have a stronger series, definitely, but overall the favorite players did make it through.
Yeah, I have to agree with you there.
Mhm.
So my predictions didn't quite come to pass, but you know,
Mhm.
I don't
Yeah,
actually remember what my predictions were. I think I did predict Australia though, so
yeah, maybe.
it's the one
I
that I
don't know.
remember because it's the one
Maybe,
that I think is
uh-huh.
correct.
Maybe. But yeah, with that we have our Hero versus Rainer and Cero versus Max Pax. That's going to be, of course, tonight. I would say the best Zergs and the best Protoss players in the world are going to be facing off against each other. Outside of Dark,
Yep.
of course, but again, Dark, he chose not
No.
to play in this tournament, so he's
Yeah.
not involved.
Yeah.
So you have them facing off against each other, and do look forward to it. Again, Mass Coliseum is still going to be running for the next week, so do stay tuned. Do stay tuned. It is going to be, of
I
course,
can't
I think
believe
2 weeks even. 2
I
weeks.
can't believe we're almost done with January and the
Yeah,
jam-packed SC Boy events. And
we've
finally
almost made it.
breathe when we get into February.
Exactly, we've almost made it. Almost made it. So yeah, do stay tuned this week for more Masters Coliseum. This leads us into the Lille League Cup. Another big major event that's occurring this month is going to be another group stage that does come to an end. We weren't able to go through the group stage completely. I think we only went over the first two groups, but Group C and Group D did conclude this week.
Yes, I think we had some predictions there.
Mhm.
And I'm so glad for Group C in particular. We were both in agreement on this one,
Mhm.
and or were we? I
We
remember
were both on Nikita.
we were both on Nikita, yes.
Yeah.
And he did make it through, so I don't remember if I
100%.
predicted Max Fax though. If I predicted Max Fax or Shin, but I remember
Uh-huh.
predicting Sola going out last,
Mhm.
so
Mhm. Yeah, I think we both agreed that Solo wouldn't make it through just because Solo, he has had a bit of a lackluster performance as of late. Like he's definitely, we spoke about the villain art,
yep.
right? Like Solo, he has been struggling in recent times after leaving Team Vitality. We were both lockstep in Skilless, and I think I went for Shin. I can't remember if you did as well, just because of Shin's recent history against Max Pax. But despite that recent history versus Max Pax, he went undefeated, not dropping a single map in this group.
Yeah, he was angry.
He was. I'm telling you, he needed that win against Cyril. He needed that win earlier
Yeah.
against Cyril, and that boosted his confidence. He was able to vent his frustrations and have a clear mind.
He
coming in.
ingested his blood, and he was like, "I see it so clearly now."
Exactly. So, GG
I
will play in Max Packs and Skills making
oh
through.
yeah, I remember Group B. I think Group A wrapped up when we covered it last time. Group B didn't wrap up yet, and I remember this is the most disappointing. I was rooting for my Poland boys,
Yes,
and
I
none of
remember
them made
this.
it through.
I went Hero Cyril, you went Spirit and Mana. And I mean, again, they had some good games. Don't get me wrong, they had some good
Yeah,
games. If
pretty
you
close at
missed it,
times.
I mean, Mana went to the ace match against Cyril. Like
Yeah,
Mana actually looked really good against Cyril. And that game that he took was late game. It wasn't even
yeah.
like an all in, or
It
it
was
was
like a
late game
cheat,
against
or it
Cyril.
wasn't like catching him off guard or anything.
Mhm.
He out macroed Cyril.
Yeah, so Mana, I mean, Cell, you could argue, Villinar, he went down to Max Packs, you know, struggling here against Mana as well. Like, Cell's been having a
Go
hard
down to
time
the
in
old
ZV.
and the young of Protoss.
True, true. Protoss have been having their
And
way with Cell as of
he
late,
went
but
down to the old of Protoss and Mana, the young of Protoss in Max Packs, and the middle age of Protoss and Hero.
yeah, I'd forgotten, but you're not wrong. Like he also lost to Hero as well. So all three of them have been definitely giving Cyril a bit of a harder time as of late. Cyril does make it through though. Likewise, Hero also made it through in first place. I mean, we just spoke about it. Hero did defeat Cyril in the Little League Cup. Very strong result there out of Hero. And
Ooh.
likewise, that series was also a banger as well. I do recommend tuning into Hero versus Cyril. It was very clutch. Hero also able to make it to the late game against Cyril at times and able to catch him off guard at times as well. So yeah, Cyril, he's been struggling a little bit here in ZVP.
Yeah.
This patch.
Yeah, we'll see if that he's able to fix that soon. TM.
Yeah, in
Maybe
the next
practice
hour.
a bit more of Twitter. Yeah.
As he's playing against Maxax tonight, so best of luck to Cyril. We also conclude group. Oh, go on.
Oh, no. Go on to Group D.
Yeah, that we also conclude Group D. I believe we were both likewise looking step here as well. Like I was hoping that Cristiano would do well, and Cristiano he did have some nice matches. Don't get me wrong, but I mean this was a hard group to seed into.
Yeah, I think Clem and Dark were my predictions as well. I on the other hand, wanted to see Cheshire do well just because I feel like it's been a while since we really saw him compete. But yeah, I think that really did show when he played in his group. He is a little bit more out of practice, and as such, he went down last in his group.
He did go down in last place. As you mentioned, he has been less active, so less in form. This isn't necessarily peak Jeshi that we were seeing here. And that leads us into the playoff bracket, which has now been seeded. And we can jump into, because when we finished casting Group D, it hadn't been seeded yet, so I haven't actually seen this myself. Let's go.
Raynor versus Cyril in the first round. Hey. Spicy.
Oh my god, this is crazy here. Okay, so first things first, Dark versus Max Packs. Now, if Dark was in form, I would say that Dark over Max Packs, but we've been talking about it. Dark has been less active. We've been seeing Dark full time and time again to Heroes of late. Dark, you know, his military service is looming over the horizon here. Dark, he left his team.
As it has been for 2 years.
Yep, true. Dark, he intentionally did not play Massive Coliseum. So I do think that Max Pax is going to be favored coming into Dark. What are your
thoughts? That's what my brain says. I feel like Max Pax is on a rampage. He is on his vendetta against Zerg. So I wouldn't be surprised if Max Pax takes it, if it even was a 3-1 or even a 3-0. But I want to root for Dark here. There's just something in me that wants to root for Dark before he goes into the military. I want him to win one more big tournament.
100%. I 100% agree. My heart is here for Dark. It would be very fitting, and it'd be a great way to end Dark's current journey in StarCraft if he were to win the entire tournament. So best of luck to Dark. We'll just have a really strong performance here. We'll see how that series does turn out next week. That leads us into the ZVZ between Raynor and Cyril. This is going to be a spicy one because it is true that Cyril historically, his ZVZ has been his weakest matchup, but he has been intentionally improving that matchup over time.
Here's the thing, though. The reason why Cyril ZVZ has historically been Cyril's weakest matchup is specifically because of Raynor. Because he keeps facing Raynor, and Raynor is one of the few players who can regularly keep up with him and even beat him.
Yeah, he is one of the few. Honestly, this could go either way. Coming into this, I know we've seen Cyril struggling against Protoss. I'm gonna favor Cyril here. That's
okay. I was gonna say I'm gonna wait for you to pick one first, and then I'll pick the other one because, like you said, it could go either way. So I'll go for Raynor. You go for Cyril. It could go really either way.
He's your
Raynor,
Italian boy.
I think, is a bit of a wild. True. I gotta support the hope. I gotta support the motherland. You know.
Yeah. There you go. Makes
Mamma
sense.
mia.
Oh no.
But yeah, I do feel like Raynor's definitely a wild card coming into this. I feel like he did have a little bit of a lackluster performance in Home Story Cup, but that was 2 months ago at this point. So I'm sure he's had a lot of time since then to get a couple more practice games in.
100%. 100%. That leads us into Hero versus Gumiho. That's going to be a spicy one. We have been seeing this week Hero win tournament after tournament after tournament after tournament. Hero, he beat Clem. Hero, he beat Cyril. Hero, I just said it, he beat the best Zerg and Terran players of their respective races
Yeah.
in the world. Hero is in form. Gumiho is a different beast, though, right? He plays like no other. He's a very unique player, so that's always why whenever anyone goes up against Gumiho, there's that X factor coming into play.
Yeah, there's that wild card coming in.
Mm-hmm.
All right, you sold me. I'm gonna predict Gumiho, but I'm gonna predict it to be a 3-2. All the way to the ace match.
Okay. I respect that. I respect it. You know, just to be different, I'll go for Hero. I'm a bit of a Hero fanboy currently, especially with his performances as of late. So, yeah. So I'll go for Hero for sure.
Yeah. I've seen your Discord messages, all your memes, your TL posts.
Yeah. There you go. Step aside. Showtime.
That's where you're going. I thought you were gonna be like, step aside, Kuro. The real Hero fan has stepped in.
Oh no one can compare. No one can compare. But best of luck to those two players. That leads us into Clem versus Skillus, a team kill.
Yeah, this is tough, man. I like Liquid. I'm a Liquid boy.
Yeah.
You know, if I were in the Legend of Aang, I'd be a waterbender.
You wouldn't be. No, you wouldn't. You would not be a waterbender. you'd be soccer, mate. What are you talking about? You'd be a part of the water tribe.
I'd be a genius. I'd be a genius engineer and womanizer. All right, I'll take it.
There you go. I can see. You know what? I can see that. Yeah. I can see.
You know what? I agree.
At least in your own mind.
Soccer.
Let's go.
Not even tough. SMH my hedge.
No. You're not cool enough to be top. What are you talking about? What are you saying right now?
I'm blind enough.
That's true. So Clem versus Skillus, you gotta pick one.
Yeah.
Who's it gonna be? Who is it gonna be, mate?
Okay, my brain is telling me Clem. And I feel like most people are probably gonna expect me to pick Clem as well, because obviously, you know, he's my boy. He's my French boy. And Terran bias, but I'm gonna be very, very honest here. In terms of my personal favorite players who I always root for, I do put Nikita higher than Clem there. So my brain is telling me Clem, and I wouldn't be opposed to him winning, but I'm rooting for Skillus in this one.
Yeah, I think I agree. I agree where the brain is Clem, right? He's the best player in the world. He's the reigning world champion. We expect him to do well in these tournaments. But I would love to see Nikita pop off and bring Clem down. Like we're big Nikita fans here as always. So best of luck to Nikita. Best of luck to Skillus in his matches. And I guess we'll keep you up to date next week. This event won't conclude for another 2 weeks, so next week we will not have a champion yet for the Little League Cup. So we will have more to get into and more to go over.
At least the upper bracket finals by then, right?
It'll be ready for us. It'll be ready to delve into. So best of luck to all the competitors here in the Little League Cup, as they're going to be competing next week in 5 days' time. They're going to be facing off, of course, and it's going to be a very intense month here of Little League Cup and Master Coliseum. And we made it, Yaku, just in time. We're wrapping up here.
Hop on NA.
Topics. No.
No, it's only 4 minutes long, I swear.
Next time, Yaku, next time. But with that wraps up the events of the week. As we mentioned previously, we do have a couple of interviews that we still have to discuss. That'll be next week. Next week, I mean, again, there's not as much to get into. So there's an interview with Tasteless, interview with Jarritos even, and of course the StarCraft Historian documentary.
Yes.
And part 2 of Tasteless.
The hot top of my head, the Tasteless 2-parter, Which I want to point out, for the record, I feel I feel personally targeted because I think when the Gur interview first came out and we were doing this podcast, I was like, oh yeah, the next one 100%. It's got to be Tasteless because you could hear him in the background of the Gur interview.
True.
I feel like ZG heard that and purposely delayed it. It couldn't have been. It couldn't have been that it was so long and needed extra time in the editing room. That couldn't have been it.
It is targeted to you, 100%. No. But yeah, with that does wrap up the events that did occur throughout the course of the week. Of course, we have the upcoming sign-up list. If you are out there, if you want to take part in some of these tournaments, you can do so via the sign-up list here that is available. It is updated on a regular basis, and you can sign up for these open events. We have events like the KSL, we have the Firegrow Cup qualifiers, we have Magic Up Masters, we have SDO on the horizon alongside it. We have Diamond League, we have a lot of events coming up.
Yeah. Whoo boy. February, man. February, we're going to be lighter when it comes to the casting on this channel, which thankfully, yeah, opens up a lot more of the amateur events and a lot more of the open events as well.
Yeah, exactly. We did allude to it earlier, but there's also the TLMC. The TLMC submission phase is still open for the next 2 weeks. We did mention it when bringing up patches. So this is just a PSA, an announcement here. If you're out there, if you're interested in making maps, or if you are a map maker yourself, do not forget to get your submissions in while you can.
Yes, you have 2 weeks. Polish it up, submit it in, and that it's 2 weeks.
Yeah, there you go. Then we'll be following that into its next phases, of course, of iteration, of judging process as well. And I'm sure we'll have our own thoughts when it comes to the maps themselves once we get into it. Also, you did mention about the amateur events. Our tournaments have been on hiatus. They have been on hiatus because of how busy January has been. But our events, they come back starting the end of January, coming into February. Sea Duckling Open, Master Swan Open, Sparkling Tuna Cup, Tenacious Total Tussle. The events are coming back at the end of the month. And if you want to support the Ducklings, if you want to support our tournaments, then you can do so via the Patreon.
Indeed, exclamation mark Patreon in the chat will bring you to the CranKy Ducklings Patreon page. We recently hit one of our targets, so yeah, we're able. I say recently, it was like 2 weeks ago. We hit one of our targets, and so yeah, with that, we were able to expand a little bit on when it comes to our amateur events. We were able to get more regularity, so to speak.
Yeah, we have a boosted prize pool. As a result. Our next goal, our next stretch goal on Patreon is to increase the payouts to not just top 2, but top 4. So top 4 will be paid out instead of just top 2. So if you want to help us reach that goal, then do so via the Patreon. It is available to you there. Otherwise, thank you so much for watching. Thanks so much for tuning in. We are running out of time. In 13 minutes, we have a cast to jump into. So thank you so much for the support. Shout out to Yaku for joining me. We look forward to your next Brutal Campaign stream, Yaku, by the way. Check out Yaku on his own channel. Exclamation mark Yaku in the chat. Yakuzaku even for links to Yaku's content. And a shout out to Kuro for the production of the podcast.
Yeah. Much obliged. I'm SMHing my head. I'm like, you just didn't want to cast my replay.
Exactly. When's the next Brutal stream, Yaku? Soon, TM?
I guess. Lunar New Year? Post Lunar New Year?
Ooh.
I don't know. I gotta wake up early next week, so probably not next week, but after next week.
Okay. After next week. There you go. It's promising you in the chat. Promising. Gotta make it through at least the vanilla campaign. Maybe Brood War next year. Maybe.
Yeah.
We'll get there.
We'll see when the Crab Champions update comes out as well. So.
Not wrong. Are not wrong. With that, thanks for watching, everyone. Thanks for support. We're going to be heading off for a couple of minutes, and the stream is going to go back online to go over and to jump into the playoffs of Masters Coliseum. Tonight, we're going to be covering and casting Rainer alongside Serral, alongside Hero, and Max Pax.
Yeah, so stay tuned to this channel. They'll be in about 10 minutes.
With that, thanks for watching. We'll see you guys next time. Ciao.
Bella.